for December 7th, 2017. I'll open the meeting and invite you to join with us in the salute to the flag. Prior to the salute to the flag, we'll have a moment of silence in remembrance of 76 years ago and the situation at that time and the people, the men and women that answered the call. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In case of fire, there are two ways to exit the chambers. To my left, you exit through the council chamber doors, turn left, walk down a flight of stairs and outside of the building. Or perhaps the best way is to exit through the doors at the rear of the chambers. In either case, once you're outside of the building, please walk a safe distance away from the building. I'd like to also at this time to take a moment to congratulate Sarah Gruber and Rich Skuzek and Charlie Ladd on their reappointments and thank them for volunteering for another 4 years of service to the town. Yes, it's quite a lot of time involved in it, and to have the people asked to come back again is very good. Okay, if the secretary please take the roll.
Charles Durin.
Here.
Elizabeth Ballard is absent. Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Sarah Gruber.
Here.
Guillermo Salazar is absent, and Rich Suzak is here.
Sarah Gruber will be sitting in for the absent commissioner. And let's see, town attorney's report. Any questions for the town attorney through Roger, through the planner?
No.
Okay. And let's see. Zoning enforcement officer. On your desk, you have the zoning enforcement record. Take it home, take a look at it. And what do we got here? No minutes for approval, I guess. Okay, public participation at this point in the meeting. The Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comments, concerns, and opinions relating to planning and zoning in Enfield from anyone who's present, provided you may not discuss any matter of business that is before this board and that's already elsewhere on the agenda. Any matter that's part of an open public hearing of the commission or any matter where a decision of the commission may be pending. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission under those conditions? Anyone who would like to address the commission under those conditions? Last call to address the commission under those conditions. Hearing none, we'll move on forward to, there are no bond releases, old business public hearing, 2889. This is recall, was called prior. Secretary will take the roll, please.
Charles Durin.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Sarah Gruber.
Here.
Rich Suzak is here.
Aldona Gruber is sitting in for the absent commissioner. Was the applicant here? This is for modification, special permit, change exterior color, Udolph Properties, owner, Plaza Aztec, Ricardo Garcia, applicant.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, in 2013, the commission approved an application for the colors this restaurant went in. This is the colors that was approved at that point in time. And the roof color was as shown. And these are the current colors as shown. So basically just gonna pass them around, we didn't want to like make copies of the colors, but these are the samples of what's there. This is the roof and the color, and this is this was the original approved plan. So
You pass them around then because
this was.
some of these commissioners were not here at the time.
Start at Sarah and work our way up.
And this was the approved roof color. It was more of an orange. This color here. And this is the roof color now.
Let me take that out.
It's a red,
Okay, let me take this out here.
so you can almost take it out and show it.
That's all right, you can see it through the back.
You can see them through the bag.
So this was the roof
Hello.
color, this is the color that it is now. And this is the color that it was approved for, and this is the color it is now, so it's actually, this color is actually.
Pass that one down.
So,
Just down that way.
the colors are a matter that the commission reviews.
Unless you're gonna stay down there, that's okay.
You recall the reason this application is here is because when you were approving Olive Garden, and Olive Garden is right next door, you were approving the material samples and so forth, and it was a member of this commission who observed the changes and asked the applicant to come forward.
I have a couple of questions I want to clear up. And apparently on this application was received October 13th, and you said the project name, paint the restaurant exterior using the same colors to give an idea of renovation. You mean you want to this is the application in October, but I think you received a cease and desist on these colors, did he? So what colors is he talking about on the application? I just want to get the application straight.
The application is to leave it as it is.
Right.
But you're not going to repaint it. That's what you say. It says you're going to repaint.
That moment when I filled the application, they request me many other things, so that's why I fill an application and they request me the approval from the owner. And the owner, it seems he was on vacation, so many months after, I received a letter saying he approved whatever maintenance we will be doing in that moment. So that why it's
Well, it was rather confusing because it says you paint the restaurant exterior using the same colors.
Same color, I
And
mean,
you're in here because you painted them those colors. So it's rather confusing, and I didn't know what we were supposed to be doing. So actually, what's in here in this application is incorrect. All right.
I think the confusion probably was, he was saying, I'm applying to paint it as the colors that it already
Yeah,
is
right
and
there,
not
yeah.
repaint it.
Okay.
So I would interpret it that way.
All right.
That was his intent. Because what we informed the gentleman is that it was up to this commission as to whether you would approve the colors he wanted or modify them or what have you, so.
Well, okay. There was also a letter from the owner dated 9/26, and that's also to paint. Now, he's already painted, so
Well, your regulations require that.
oh, I know we do.
That
but-
the owner give permission, and so we asked them to get us a letter from the owner, and that's the letter that was turned in.
I guess we could use that as then to, if we require or whatever comes out of this meeting, then he's able to do. All right. I just want to get some of the statements that are down in writing changed or acknowledged as to what they are to be. Commissioners, questions?
Yeah, I have one. If, in your application, you said you wanted to paint them the same colors, why didn't you?
Same colors, I mean, yellow, yellow for me is yellow,
that's why I
and that's a different color, you know,
Yeah, but with-
more brighter,
But
more.
the roof is way brighter than it was before. It's a whole different red.
It's a different red, yeah. But I mean, when I filled the application, I understood that only the building. By ignorance, I never mentioned that the roof was gonna be painted of another color. I meant the building per se. I mean the walls.
Clarification, your application came in after you did the work.
Of course.
You went and did it, and then the
I-
application.
we did it.
So it was all done.
Then I was requested to fill an application to get the approval.
So you
And
didn't know
some-
there was a problem changing the color on the roof?
I'm sorry?
You didn't realize there was a problem with changing the color on the roof? then?
Honestly, no, sir, because I saw many other roofs in the same, kind of the same color. So that's why I did, actually, I didn't even know that I had to have an approval from you. The main thing that you should know, I did that because maybe it's well known for many of you that the Plaza Azteca is not in good condition, and I'm behind on property taxes. I'm behind in, many other regarding business, and I'm trying to keep the business on it. So I did what I thought it was going to be better for the business, trying to get more people to my restaurant. So that means I did it, to get more attention. If you can see if you see the restaurant is below the way
It's right on
Hazard
line of
Avenue
sight
is.
with the road.
Sorry?
That roof is right on line of sight with the
Well,
road. That's how it got noticed.
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you do the original permit? Were you at Azteca when they came in the first time?
No. I am managing you mean, I am the general manager of that location since 1 year and a half. I wasn't when it was, when everything started.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
But this is a franchise, isn't it?
Yes, sir, yes, it is now, because an owner bought it, that restaurant. The previous owner, he sold the restaurant to another guy who really owns many other Plaza Aztecas, but that was 6 months ago.
Well, what I'm getting at really, I would imagine there's a standard color for the Aztecs restaurants, isn't there?
No, there are many other different colors. I mean, the main idea for those Plaza Aztecas is to give to the people that, Mexico is with a lot of colors. And if you know, the colors of Mexico are really, it can be like pink, like really, really, bright. And then yellow, of course, and red, of course. And that's why we are trying to do something related from Mexico, of course.
Turn it down, they didn't get it.
My fault, of course, was not to be aware that I need an approval for this. That's the main issue. But it wasn't like, against the rules.
But
Just my only intention was to bring more customers. I'm
But
sorry.
I'm confused because the applicant that came in here for the renovations was out of Florida, wasn't it? From the home office?
In 2013.
Right.
And I'm wondering, I don't know because I wasn't here in 2013. Maybe Ginny would know. But did they actually paint it those colors that were approved in 2013?
They painted the colors that were approved by the council, and a few members made a point of going out and looking to make sure. And
So I'm just saying that there was really no need from a painting standpoint to paint it 4 years later, right?
correct.
No, I'm talking about not in 13. just prior to the painting, for the renovations that they went through, or no, they
When they
didn't.
first
No.
opened.
I'm sorry. First
No,
opened.
no, they didn't, Mr. Chairman, they didn't do any renovations. There was, it was Olive Garden next door that's been before you,
Right,
and is
but-
about to start renovations.
But he says in, I don't know if I did. Paint the restaurant exterior using same colors to give an idea of renovation. We painted the exterior, the windows and the red roof, so, oh, all right. To give an idea of renovation, so they actually didn't do any. I just took it as reading it that they did renovations, so he painted the roof to tell people he'd done some renovations.
It might
All
look
right.
like he did.
Well, that's why the council, the commission asked for samples, and that's why you ask for them all the time, because there's many shades of yellow, and there's
Oh,
many
yeah.
shades of red, and many shades of blue, and that's one of the reasons why it's in the file.
There, in my reading of the regulations, there doesn't seem to be for the business regional zone, which is a sin. There's not a specific standard. What it sort of talks about is that the commission will determine the appropriateness, and so
It's always been earth tones usually.
right. So what I'm saying, and I've always been told that, but I'm just saying there that based on your regulations, you have wide discretion, and so that's why there's, it's not like if they came in and that I would say to you it has to be an earth tone. I would say the commission would prefer an earth tone, and then they come in and present. So the whole point of the regulating the design is so you'd have a consistent theme over there. So you're, you have wide discretion based upon your own regulations as to determining appropriateness based upon the other buildings that are there and what you have approved in the past and what you would be inclined to approve in the future.
Because the only thing that I'd like to add is that I know that most paint stores can just match just about any color from either a photograph or just a slight chip of paint or anything, and that if you had instructed your painter to match those colors, that he could have easily just taken a photograph on his phone and brought it over to the paint store, and they would have matched it a lot closer than whatever colors you did get in terms of, they have these color matching, laser things or whatever they have, but they can match it pretty close to whatever color you want just by, comparing it to a palette of colors that they do have. So that, again, you're not just looking at red is red is red is red, but if there's 50 shades of red and that they could adjust their, mixtures to match just about any color that you can. Yeah, and you don't have to bring the whole building over. All you got to do is bring,
just with a
just
picture.
something very, very small or something that is a representation of what you have. So in that sense, there's probably no excuse to really not matching that same color because of technology that exists.
No, I'm not.
So-
I'm not telling I didn't do that. Actually, it was on purpose, as I said, to give a little more life to the building. And some of
He
the
wanted the
some of-
attention, which he got.
my intention was honestly to, because in that moment, you can see now the restaurant, but when it's spring, there's a lot of trees that you cannot see the restaurant.
Oh, you can
There's
see
no
it.
way that you can see the restaurant because it's you cannot see by the trees. And another thing that I noticed is that there's any other, like sign saying Plaza Azteca is here. Many of my new customers living here on Enfield, they didn't even know that the restaurant was there. Believe me, and it's like, as I said, I'm going to be doing whatever to keep the restaurant in business since, I'm behind.
If I could just, for the purposes of the record, when the Assistant Zoning Enforcement Officer originally went out there as a result of the complaint from the commission, what the town was told was that they sent two guys to Home Depot, and that's the colors they came back with. That's a different story than what is being presented tonight.
I mean, to be clear, if the applicant had just actually matched the colors and touched up with the exact same colors, there'd be no problem, right? Okay.
Absolutely, right.
But he said he wanted it to be brighter, so. Attract attention.
And he got it.
I guess my question would be, did you attract more customers with it?
A little bit, yes. We know-
Significantly a lot, or?
Significant, I will say yes. I will say yes. Yes, I don't know, I can tell you at least 10% maybe, which was good. Actually, I told my boss about it, and he was like, oh, that's the, by ignorance, but he was like, oh, perfect, that was a really good idea, blah, blah, blah. But, well, that was a good idea, but not anymore.
Well.
Okay. This is a public hearing, right?
Yes.
Okay, any more questions? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against the application? Last call to speak in favor or against the application. Roger, any concerns or comments? Okay, then I'll close public hearing 2889. What's the desire of the commission?
What he has, or are we accepting?
There were two proposals before you.
Thank you.
Oh, I just find it
That's
here.
a determination of the commission.
Acceptable change to the originally approved MAC.
The other question is, can we accept one of the colors and not the other one?
No.
I'm going to make I'm going to move that we approve, that we move for the approval of the resolution to approve public hearing number 2988 as prepared by the planning department with the 4 conditions that are indicated. The only thing that I'd like to do is modify the fact that although we are accepting the colors that exist here now, that if there are going to be any changes or upgrading of the building in the future, is that they will revert to their original colors. That, I don't think that we should have any hardships on a struggling business at this point, but that if it does turn itself around, I'd like to.
Want a discussion first? or
Right,
not?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm sort of just placing that, I'm going to change the conditions such that they reflect the fact that we want them to revert back to the original colors, even though we're accepting these colors as they are right now.
I guess my question about that is whether,
You got to second it.
what if they want, is this a
second.
motion or is this a
Second that
discussion?
Oh, no, it's just the discussion first, because
Discussion of motion.
Okay.
I,
So I have a question about that, I guess. If they loved this new scheme that we may or may not approve tonight, and they want to touch up only these colors, not the colors from the original application, would your motion allow for, with the resolution that you proposed to?
No.
No.
No, okay.
No.
I, the only thing, in going through this before, and the comments have come in, is that change the roof color and leave the sides. I would go for that myself, because the sides aren't too different from what's there.
I like Rich's suggestion. The only other thing I'd say is that as one of the conditions, that a letter be sent along with the conditions of approval to the owner as well as to the restaurant, stating that going forward, any changes should be checked with staff before a building permit's put in, because then that shifts the whole. It's easier to ask forgiveness after you do it, but this time it would put them on notice. You are aware that going forward, You need to check with staff before you do anything to the exterior of the
I'll
building.
tell you what you're doing to the rest of the community, the business community, is go ahead and paint anything you want, any color you
Oh,
want.
I agree with you.
Well, that's what you're doing right now with this motion, is to allow, to go ahead and paint anything you want, and we're gonna give you years and years and years of what you're painting, and,
No, no.
after 50 years, you can repaint it,
No.
back to the original color.
No, he put it in the positive form, but you can vote no. I don't, it
Well, yes,
isn't,
that's what you're saying.
Well-
He's getting
Well, one of
the
the
colors he has.
One of the suggestions the zoning enforcement officer had made to the gentleman was, what if he painted like the roof one year and the side, and each side over 4 years, he puts
but
it,
who's
he puts
going
it
to-
back to what it was.
who's going to check on
So
that?
we'd say this year he paints the roof, next year he paints the front, the year after he paints the two sides. And
staff
over a
is-
period of time, it goes back to what it was.
staff is short-handed, you're always saying, and pulled in 5 different directions. You're making more work for yourself, because if you say he has to
No,
change
but we
the
were
roof,
concerned, with what the chairman was saying, is that
but that it won't
I
happen.
mean, you think about Olive Garden next door, and they were before this commission for like 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And you required detailed stonework from them that it took them a while to get. You wanted to know how the stone, I mean, and this is right next door. And while they were here, this changed colors. And you're saying, oh, okay, well, Olive Garden could have gone ahead and done everything they did as well. And then what would you have
Exactly.
done?
I'm not in favor of businesses not checking, or, but I've,
I guess my
I guess the only thing that I'm trying to do is sort of temper, the resolution such that, if there is a struggling business, we don't necessarily cause an undue burden to a struggling business. If
But
there,
that's what he says. I don't know. You don't have the books. I'm sorry.
I would just say, if you want to do it that way, just have them, the positive resolution with change the roof in the spring.
Well, yeah, get the roof done.
Make that a condition.
I mean, it seems everyone understands that the painting happening without checking in was wrong, except that, in my view, the colors are within the realm of what was originally approved, and it's not it doesn't seem like the worst colors. It seems in line with what was originally approved, and you can't really unring the bell. So imposing conditions going forward that would require to go back to pretty much the same colors we would approve seems like a lot of work and a lot of expense for a business.
well, don't, keep in mind, I understand what you're saying, and I'm going to play the devil's advocate. As the gentleman himself said, there's many colors of yellow and many colors of red. So if this is approved, which is, up to everybody on the commission, then, the next one coming in might decide they want to, I don't know, the construction yellow or the John Deere equipment yellow.
That's
and
why
maybe,
we take chips, and a lot of times we don't even take the chips, we take materials, because the chips and what you see in chips isn't necessarily what the material looks like when it's painted.
What I'm hearing is this gentleman didn't know, and it's only because he was here for a year and a half. And I don't understand their business cycles, and I don't want to know how they do day to day. But if this gentleman moves to another store, he gets another new general manager in, and he decides to paint, he may not ask either because he may not know, and then go and do something and paint it completely different.
But they have a central office.
But that
So-
wouldn't be because of our actions tonight. That would be
No,
because lack
I'm
of
just
education in the
saying
community
is-
about what they're allowed to do.
But I'm just saying is with
Didn't know you
leaving
couldn't
it
do
these
80 on
colors,
91. They told me though.
no, I think you're
Right,
just trying to nip it in
leaving-
the bud so that,
leaving these colors, and it just continues on forward.
They have central office, though, and usually they have a maintenance division. Most companies, whether this is a home base owned or owned by a franchisee, they have their requirements. And to me, there isn't an excuse of not finding out. If he's a manager, he knows there's town requirements. I hear a lot of times that ignorance is a no excuse, but the major concern I would be with, and the complaint we've had mostly, is on the roof. And I can see.
Mr. Chair, in that light, I'd like to modify my, the resolution to such that at the present time, we will require that the roof color be match the original approval, and that the wall color will match the original color as if it's ever modified in the future. In terms of, so the resolution is that the roof color shall be changed to match the original approved color as soon as it's capable of being painted, and preferably in the spring.
No later than.
Right,
You know,
but
no
no
later than May
later
or June.
than June 1st. I think that would give them plenty of time. But that the wall colors could stay as they are, but they will revert to the original colors once, if there is any modifications that are to be made to the restaurant.
I second that.
Motion's made and seconded. Now, again, any discussion?
I'm more comfortable with that.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, it doesn't allow for someone to basically not come and get approval for something, but also, we stick with what we originally approved, and to a degree, I mean, I do believe that the colors of the wall are close in some ways. They're not that far off, but the roof is way off. So yeah, I mean, for me, I'm comfortable with that. That works a lot better. And it's more of a compromise too, with not being such a burden for the business owner as well.
Anyone further?
I guess I'm not sure that I understand. It seems like there's just a measure of deterrence involved rather than just saying, do these colors look good now? I mean, we have a zoning enforcement officer to stop things that are being done without our approval, that need to have our approval. That happened. The question is, do we now think that the colors look okay? And I don't know that that's, I agree that compared to how the colors were when they originally painted, they're slightly different, but do they generally look like a Plaza Azteca would, and does that Plaza Azteca look good in our community? And I don't know that we've discussed that as much.
So it's my understanding.
To that end,
majority
if I
of
could,
painters-
we sent Rick around to other communities. There are several other Plaza Aztecas, and they all look like the original Plaza Azteca colors. None of them have a roof like this.
Well, I mean, I'd done like a Google search just for images, and I saw some Plaza Aztecas that had no yellow walls and mostly stone. So there are some variations. I don't know that it's identical.
But not the bright red. There's no
Okay.
bright red roof.
And in the interest of being consistent with, our regulations, I think that, we, and I would have to agree with Chairman Duran, is that we should bend a little bit, but we can't necessarily, totally flip-flop back and forth, because that would send, the wrong idea to the community that, we don't have any enforcement requirements, and that we, are wishy-washy, even though we are. But, it's one of those kind of things we cannot be. We have to be consistent to every applicant, and otherwise, we start losing our authority, and that, we start, not necessarily, even though we're showing favoritism, we cannot show any kind of favoritism or, relax our regulations. So in that sense, I think that this is a good compromise.
Well, yeah, and again, coming to looking at them, they are earth tones. Had he came in and said, I want to change them, we probably would have gone to these earth tones. Yeah, for the wall.
Right, and if that's the case, then why impose a requirement that he revert back to something that currently we might approve? I mean, it still is an expense. That's understood, and I understand, again, that what happened here was not the way it should have happened. But presently, does this look like something we would approve? And if the answer is yes, then why impose a condition that imposes more cost on a business owner to go back to something that's just as acceptable, or could be just as acceptable, color-wise?
There has to be a little penalty, I think, rather than, or not, than just giving in to going ahead and changing anything on your own. That he's got something to look forward to. We won't put him out of business, but the roof is a little bit too much, or much. And I think that adds to it, that you just can't do it and get away with it, that's all.
Understood.
Because you've got to have enforcement, or you might as well forget the P and Z.
We already got enough people coming in for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Well, I understand all of those concerns.
Gotta be
I
a
will
hook.
I will likely vote no on that motion solely
All
because
right.
I would approve the colors as is, and I understand all these things, but I think the colors are fine.
Okay,
And I'm more with the colors. I don't think it's as similar, so that's, for me, the roof is quite different than
But
anything
that's what
else.
we'd
And
start
that's,
with, but-
yes, exactly, and so I
Okay.
probably wouldn't have approved that anyway, so.
somebody move the question. All right.
You already got the vote.
Okay, the motion's on the table, right, I just need to have some, okay. If you're ready to vote,
Go.
all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, opposed? 2. No, well, that's up to Liz if she heard enough or not, because I had appointed, I'm sorry?
She had already voted.
I know, but I'd have to I'll either have to knock out,
All I was saying is both Elizabeth and Sarah can't vote.
Right.
well, I know, I don't know, I had appointed,
I don't care.
well,
Well,
I'm
no,
sorry.
Sarah was in for the start of this, so she has
Yeah,
to finish.
Yeah, Sarah was appointed earlier, so Sarah's I gotta take her vote. So it's 2, 5, 4, and 2 against. And no abstentions. And Liz is not considered as voting for the minutes.
So we go into the next one, Elizabeth's going to vote.
Yeah, the next one, Liz is on. Keep me
Because we
straight.
already took the roll, that's why. The roll call was already taken, that's why, so.
New business, public hearings, 525 Enfield Street.
Does he know what had happened here?
I'm sorry.
Does he?
Right, by the way, sir, if you will check, please, with Roger in his office, and he can give you the paint swatch or your paint number that is on here and for the roof. And any other thing, and if there should be a change in managers, you might want to leave the paint codes for him.
Yes, thank you.
While 525 is setting up, will the secretary, 2891,
You
public
have to
hearing.
set up over here, sir, because of the cameras.
Take the,
Okay.
you're
where
right.
the tripod is
Where the
there.
tripod is.
Okay.
Secretary, please take the
In
roll
fact,
and
you
read
use
the
that
legal
tripod if
notice.
you want.
Okay. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, December 7th, 2017, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2891, 525 Enfield Street, modification to a special use permit for improvements to Artioli Dodge, located in the Enfield Street, King Street Design Overlay District. Robert Artioli Jr., owner applicant, map 33, lot O265, Business General BG Zone. Dated the 4th date of December 2017. Charles Duran, Chairman. Information is available at the Enfield Planning Office, Enfield Town Hall. Charles Duran.
Here,
Elizabeth Ballard.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nicholas Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Sarah Gruber.
Here.
And Rich Suzak is here.
it's okay, is the applicant, oh, all right. If you'll twist that a little bit towards the, yeah. Yep. That's good, and the camera will be able to pick that up, and also the commissioners.
Are we good? Yep. Good evening. My name is Kimberly Mazwick, and I'm an engineer with Associated Builders. We're design build general contractors, and we've been working with Artioli Dodge over the past few months on some proposed improvements. And with me tonight, I have Tim Hool from our office, Anthony Triano, and Bob Artioli Jr. over there. So we are here for a modification to their existing permit so they can do some proposed improvements. I'm sure you guys have been through this with many car dealerships. As they go along, the car manufacturers request them to do upgrades. And this, of course, is in the Business General District as well as the Enfield Street Overlay District. So we had to work a little bit. We've had some preliminary discussions with Roger and Raquel going back and forth about the facade materials and so on and so forth, because this is an existing non-conforming lot. The it's on 525. I'm gonna. Actually, there we go. So it's 525 Enfield Street, and on this plan, this is Enfield Street here, corner of Fremont Road. This is their existing dealership in this location, and there's another kind of outbuilding that they have on the back side over here. So we aren't proposing any changes to the site, essentially. Really, it's just proposed renovations to the inside of the dealership, upgrades for finishes and whatnot, reconfiguration of some of the offices. And then with the outside, what they were looking at doing is removing, let me show you this one, this existing vestibule canopy here, and there's another one that's a glass atrium on the side. So they're looking at taking those down and then just replacing this one with this entry element that you see here. And they would like to leave the existing brick, paint it, and then paint the existing panels around the rest of the building. So it's very straightforward. This canopy here, it's a sign, I call it a sign canopy. It's freestanding, and it's actually farther away from the street than the existing one, so that actually helps us as far as the conformance. So it is, again, existing non-conforming, and that's due to the setback in the front. The building is closer. This line right here is a 40-foot setback. And of course, you can see the building is into it, as well as that front canopy. And we're actually pushing that back, distancing it a little bit farther, about 3 feet, and then removing this side glass atrium that they have. So it's fairly straightforward. We're also going to do the re-roof the facility because it's leaking and in disrepair, so they're going to be doing that. And that's really the extent of it. I know the comments, I'm not sure what your format normally is if you go over the comments, but really it was no comments, essentially.
That's what I was wondering.
Or no concerns, I think, was what we had. There was one from the fire department that said no comment, but we had actually, Bob spoke with the fire department and they said that they were okay with it and there were no concerns, so hopefully you guys had gotten that back from them. And then I know that there was a request on one of the conditions for a 35-foot setback to the residential district. So if you look at this, actually I can show you better on a different plan here. So this is the Google Earth image. Again, this is Enfield Street, Fremont. That's the existing building. And this is that outbuilding. And this area right here is all residential. So there was a request for a 35-foot buffer, which is in the zoning for new facilities. And when I started looking at it, we understand and value the importance of that, but it looks like they've already addressed it, albeit some of this buffer is on their property and the neighbor's property. It's pretty evident right here that you can see that they have white pines, and then underneath that, they've already got a 6 foot high stockade fence. So I in my opinion, that although it's non-conforming, so I don't think that it, is actually required for non-conforming, I do believe that they've already addressed that. So I'm not sure. That's really the extent of it. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Not at this point, no. Any questions or comments you may have?
just reading it to myself, I go back to, I saw the name Keller and didn't realize you'd taken the Keller property. Then remember the fire. The fact they had a neighbor who was severely scarred from that fire. And that brought back some memories on that.
I had a question about what was the condition of the setback, not the setback, but the buffer zone to the residential area? What was the condition there for the original special permit? Has there been any addition of paving, or was there always essentially no?
The trees that exist now were this high when we first got there. Now they're huge. That they were what were required when we.
And this was 1975 or something, you
Well,
said?
those trees were probably put in like in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. So there was nothing specific that was written in that I had seen on the special
Right.
permit for that.
Was there paving all the way up to those trees at the time of the original?
No.
So the paving was added?
No, what paving is there now is what was there.
Okay. Thank you.
Because I have a question in terms of, I did take a ride past the facility earlier, and I did notice that, there appears to be, a considerable amount of, or some automobiles along, the fence area, and, I think that it would be beneficial if, there weren't cars stored directly against the fence or fairly close to the fence, is that, if there was going to be the storages of some vehicles, they should probably be a little further away from the residences that are there. And I guess the only thing that I also noticed is that, some of the backyards are fairly close to that fence in terms of they don't have a significant real estate and they don't have significant buffers, so that, anything that could be added, that would be consistent with, again, visually blocking, the view of, that, area. And it would enhance the entire area also in terms of, it would create, some more greenery. And I think that, maybe a 35-foot buffer zone, might be, a little, looking at, how landlocked this entire property is, but that, it could be improved visually. And I think that, looking at, some of the other areas where, plantings were added to enhance, properties, is that, eventually when they do mature, they do have an effect on creating a softer feel for certain areas. And that, I would believe that, if we could, definitely, maybe not necessarily, again, I have a little pattern that I drew on my plan and said, 35 feet, you're taking quite a bit of land away.
It's almost 60 cars for
Most
them.
of those trees are on our side.
There's it's about
matured into-
20. They've got, it kind of varies along the back here, but it is.
Well, I guess I was looking more along the south side. I know that along the south side, there's very little, buffer.
Near Moore Rug, right?
Right, so on the south side,
Near
I know that there's a very little buffer, and I know that, if I was looking at, that it says now or formerly of Robert A. Ardioli, that house is fairly close to the, that existing building, on that corner. It's the first residential.
Are you on this one right here?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that's north, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
on the north side, right.
Okay.
I'm saying the
I thought you were
south
saying
side.
the south, and I was gonna say there's
I know the south side
definitely-
is relatively sparse in terms of,
Yeah.
coverage.
But it is near the residence, like the residential district stops right here, so there is a buffer around that, and then this is
Right.
that more Rug. I understand what you're saying here. Of course, this is a building right on the property
Right,
line.
right.
So that's a little bit difficult.
Right. So I
but
think that-
you're right here in this little missing spot
that's
is
our
what you're
house.
talking about.
It is.
I know, and maybe you don't care, and you probably
okay.
don't, but I guess, what I'm looking at is that, the big picture is that, if we could sort of, do something that would be more in conformance, and, and I guess one of the other conditions is that, there be an introduction of some, islands of plantings, and, I think that would enhance the property too, in terms of it would give it a little more, color and a little more softness in terms of, rather than being just, you know, cars, 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 cars. You know, and, but,
I agree.
That's what
they do on car
That's what they do.
I know.
Right, and it is, you know,
I know.
that's something, I guess, that, you know, they can speak to. I'm just interpreting going through and looking at the zoning bylaw, and it does, to me, it looks like it's non-conforming, and we weren't proposing any work on the site. And I don't see where it would technically be required as to whether or not you guys want to.
Well, I should say, too, islands
Work
do
with
make
some-
it difficult.
Sir, the control booth says that everybody at the counter needs to come up, speak into the mic and
Okay.
identify yourself, because you're on TV and they
Okay.
can't hear you. So you got to identify yourself and speak into the mic.
Anthony Triano. I would say that islands throughout the parking lot are a little dangerous, not just for people driving, but for snow removal, too. It makes it very difficult when it's covered in snow. And the parking lot is kind of tight right now, and it's difficult to put those islands in.
Yeah, and the only thing I'm looking at is you know, because I know you have a main entrance that comes in, you know, off of Enfield Street on, you know, the southwest corner. And that, you know, you have, you know, that's where you delineate a lot of your parking in terms of, you start with, you know, your numbering of your parking spaces, that, you know, potentially there could be a little, you know, island that's running, you know, along the edge of, you know, I guess, parking spots 6 through, you know, 17 or something, you know, along that strip where, you know, as you drive in, you have the building on your left, on the north side, and then you would have a little patch of greenery possibly along the, you know, the south side. But it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, in the middle of a driveway. You know, in terms of, you can have two sides of parking and a little bit of greenery, and then you have all your display areas on the other side of, you know, of a little island, in terms of, you know, some creative way of adding a little bit of greenery, but not necessarily, you know, restricting or constricting what you're doing, so that you still have access. But, you know, normally you wouldn't traverse north to south. Most of your traffic patterns, I believe, are east and west. So
Correct.
that, you know,
So
if you
you're
created,
saying,
He's
like on the
talking
south
right
side?
here.
Yeah,
I
well,
believe.
you're-
Am I in the right spot right here? Almost directly in front of the.
no. Keep going down. Keep
I think
going.
he's saying
No,
that
keep
south
going down.
side,
Keep going down.
right?
Right along there. See,
Here.
No. Right there. You know, if you
So
went
doing
east.
some plantings. There is
If you went
grass
east
there.
from, if you went east from that where you had your finger, right along there. So basically, you know, there's all your parking areas over here, and then you just go east of that. You know, I don't know. But I think that it would be not, you know, it would be more consistent, because I guess, you know, when we're looking at the overall scheme of things, what we want to do is soften Enfield Street so it doesn't have so much asphalt and so much, you know, darkness to it, that it, you know, or urbanness to it. We want it to be a little more, you know, residential feeling, and the way it would start, you know, start getting that kind of feeling is if we started adding trees now. And if we start doing it now, then the next business adds a little more, and the next guy adds a little more, and before you know it, we have a little bit of greenery all the way up, you know, the street and down the street. But we need to start somewhere, and you know, that's part of our regulations, that we do that.
I think we could do something on that corner there. I think we could work something that,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and something that, you know, again, isn't going to restrict you from using your space, but it sort of delineates, you know, your main display area from your reserved display area, and it adds a little place where you can add some, you know, greenery.
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
At one time, and it might have been in the 1990s, there was an acquisition of real estate either to the right or to the left.
It was to the south.
To the south. And I think at that point, there was a requirement that there be some buffering put in. And you weren't able to find anything there? No? And I
Yeah,
think
the discussions that with the applicant were actually focused on adding street trees along Enfield Street. I don't see it in the resolution per se, but I mean, basically, you got that wide right-of-way, and it's all blacktop. There's no street trees at all.
Yeah, I know.
And with respect to the buffers, it is an existing business that's not asking for a change of use, and so the commission does not have to impose a 35-foot buffer. You could reduce the size of that buffer, but I do think a buffer, the buffer should be beefed up in the areas where it needs to be beefed up. I would tend to agree that And where, if you put that aerial back up, where those cars are parked right out next to the street does not comply with your zoning regulations at all. They need to be set back, and there needs to be landscaping in there. So the cars got to be moved back from the street, and there got to be street trees. As far as the other buffers, the only other abnormality that we said in here is that there are like 3 different lots and so there really needs to be one lot, because otherwise, if we really wanted to apply zoning, we'd have setbacks and buffers all over the place when it's really one lot. And so
We concur with that completely, and
so
would
those lots
combine it if
really
there
ought
was
to
a
be all
permit.
merged,
Yep.
and it'd be one lot as condition of approval. So, I mean, in general, the other thing from a site design standpoint, the design district, you probably wouldn't favor painting brick. But in this instance, it seemed to be consistent with your design themes, but in general, we don't recommend that commissions endorse the notion of painting brick. The staff was okay with. The commission has to decide whether you're okay with it or not, because, and again, your Enfield Street Design District regulations talk about traditional New England design. So you have to decide if that's traditional New England design. It's an improvement from what's there.
Sure is.
Seems
so
consistent as well with what's
it's
going
an
on down
improvement
here.
from what's there, but I have an obligation to point these things out to you so that you're. Overall, the recommendation of staff was add some street trees and some landscaping in the front. Beef up the buffer areas. 35 feet is probably not practical given the existing thing, but it can be improved, and merge the lots.
How are you going about the landscaping on the front? Because I was thinking you don't want to distract from the building, so it'd have to be low.
Right, and so I would agree. You don't want a bunch of trees that are going to obscure it, but at the same time, I mean, there's all kinds of low plantings you can put in there, even that they would. So when you're going up the street, you're looking at low, soft vegetation and not the bumpers of cars.
I mean, those are our main display areas, the front line, you know what I mean, of a car
Hell,
dealership. That's
it
where you're
has to.
displaying your cars. I don't know how you would put trees in front of them. I don't know anywhere I've ever
Well,
seen a
unless
car
he's
dealership
talking
with
about
trees in
taking
front of
out the
them.
asphalt that's in the.
Have you been on Palumbo Drive?
No. I've been by here, out front.
Well, I think too, the building being close to the road, it kind of, it changes. If
But I think what I'm just saying from a staff standpoint, and it's the commission's discretion, is that there's a world of opportunity for creative design between what's there now and blocking your view with all trees.
There's a from the street curb to the curb on where he has his cars parked, that's blacktopped in, and would there be enough room to even put a bush or something in there? And it's probably on state property anyway.
it's about a 2 foot.
Quite a wide state right away there.
But they wouldn't be able to plant bushes or trees in the state though.
We
Right.
got
There-
we got sidewalks and trees all up and down in the state right away.
Well, yeah.
Are the wires on that side of the street?
Yes.
The utility wires?
Yeah.
Or are they on the opposite side? Because you don't want to have tall vegetation growing into that.
That's overhead wires, right?
Yeah.
They're
I guess
there.
with respect to the setback to the state road, it seems like, and maybe the applicant can confirm, but it seems like these conditions were already in existence when the original special permit.
Probably weren't any requirements. This was, if you want to go back, it was a Nash dealership way back when.
Well, I mean,
I'm just gonna.
I'm sure we were here at least in the 90s and early 2000s doing stuff, that I can remember.
Yeah.
And this special permit, the old special permit is from 2003. did we not have setback requirements in 2003?
Yeah, but the building's been there since,
Yes, yeah.
Right, so what I'm saying is, there was a special permit back then, and these setback requirements and additional buffer zones weren't imposed then.
Yes.
And they're not asking to change any of the use of the areas we're talking about currently in terms of setback and buffer.
The answer to the commissioner's question, there's a picture that Raquel brought up, their overhead wires are running along the street.
yeah, that's shown.
Thank you.
Okay, if I just would like to, when we went through this design and went through zoning, we went through that non-conforming structures, and it says, and I'm reading it, a non-conforming structure may be expanded, altered, or extended, which we're not even proposing to do. Such expansion, alteration, or extension does not violate or further violate any of the height, bulk, setback, or landscaping requirements for the zone in which it is situated. So that's why we didn't go back and take out, I mean, they would be out of business if we tried to meet your current requirements. They would have, we actually did a plan. They went from 300 and something spaces to 90, and they would be out of business.
Couldn't operate.
So hopefully we can come up with
always been the
something that's amenable to both parties, whether it's, pulling back this part where there's a little bit of greenery here.
On the north part, we have greenery.
You do have greenery, so you have
Same thing.
perimeter.
We could
See
do
the
same thing
grass
on the-
there.
We
Right.
could do the same
They
thing to the
expanded to
south.
the back because they had
Right,
some.
and you have a little bit of greenery here, so maybe you could do
Ours up
some
above.
plantings here and here. Here, you really don't have the room because you don't even have a
No.
decent drive aisle here, and you're right on your property line. So I could see where you could do a little something here and maybe up here. As for this, in my general opinion, is that between the low screening with the stockade fence and the higher with all the pines, that you're covered, with the exception of this one little spot
We
right
should
there.
say the neighbors are content in the back because those pine trees are the evergreens. They're not, they're not leafy trees, so they are green year-round, and they can't see our parking lot, and we can't really see the houses. They seem to be happy with it, and like you said, it's a 6-foot-high stockade fence, so can't see anything either direction.
We actually had a bear in the tree that time.
And the trees that are now, I didn't measure, they're high. They're 20, 25 feet high, thick evergreens. As you can see in the picture, it's big.
So would you be willing to do the planning she was just discussing?
On the corners, yes.
Yeah, there and there?
Yep.
It helps.
Well, for making it looking better, that's why we're doing,
Right.
spending the money that we are. We realize we need to do something, and it would be better for everybody.
And I think, like he mentioned over here, is that if you do it on the perimeter, you're not interfering with the plowing that you were concerned about, and you all go that way. So I think that would work for everybody.
Okay,
100%.
so,
What have you got, what is that, changes making on the
well, Roger,
conditions?
you writing the new condition on that, Roger? Trying to.
While he's writing, I have one more piece to this puzzle, which is Dodge. So their original proposal for this was that they wanted ACM panels, the Alucobont, composite metal panels on this whole thing, and they asked that we get something in the minutes or something from you guys that would say that wouldn't be acceptable. And we gave them the section of zoning that specifically for this district says, it has to be wood, brick, things like that. So they said, well, we want, they wanted to see the Alucobond metal panel all here or EFIS here. And they asked if we could get something in the minutes that would say that that's not consistent with the zoning regulations.
It's a shiny
Metal? Well, okay.
No, I actually think that's attractive.
Well, right here, this is just the painted brick.
Right.
This sign canopy does have that. It's like a more flat silver panel, which is similar to like Gary Rome has it, I think, on his. Not all the components, but the sign
Way
similar.
Honda has the blue cylinder. And
Yeah, exactly. So
Chrysler-
that so
Their trademark.
Trademark.
and that.
We have to buy it from them.
Yeah, it's something that is right from the manufacturer, so we can't change it. We tried to ask if we could
You have
build
to
it.
use the hand mic down there, sir.
So, at any rate, if we can, if it's possible for us to do that, that's what they're looking for. Otherwise, they expect them to do ACM panels on this, or EFIS, like painted brick was the, you know.
I've been asked this question for several months, and the reason I never wrote anything that said is because unless you have an application in front of you and you know what it is in its totality, I mean, certainly if the commission wants to go on record as saying that, but I was reluctant to write something that says we wouldn't approve that, because until you have something in its totality, because beyond what the regulations say, and I think the regulations are quite clear.
So, and even if you can just say that it wouldn't be consistent with the regulations for that district, and we have it in the minutes, that's adequate for Dodge. But it says, building design elements, materials, texture, and color used on the exterior walls and roofs shall be those associated with traditional New England architecture. Preferred building materials shall be brick, stone, and wood, including narrow width siding, clapboards, and wood shingles, or reasonable equivalents. And on the sign and the sign canopy, it just says that that should complement the building. So I think that if you read that technically, that you would be, the ACM materials here wouldn't work, but that you could do it for the sign canopy.
Okay, so
That looks like it's a good compromise between our regulations, which require the brick, and the facade appearance that Dodge Chrysler has as a standard.
Thank you.
okay, so what?
It's a public hearing, so
Well,
we can't.
I know, but I didn't know where she is or the rest, or any questions from you people.
I have one quick one. This is in the design overlay district, so Roger, you can help me out with this. The Artioli sign in the drawing appears to be above the roof line. And when Aldi's came in, we wouldn't let them do it above the roof line. So, you know, is it different in the design overlay district?
No, that's one of the issues that we have, in that this commission traditionally doesn't take up the signage when you are approving the site plan, and
Right.
they show a sign, and then they'll come back and apply for that sign, and they'll be told that sign is not
Oh, I
consistent with the
understand that.
regulations.
The only reason I asked the question is because if it's caught now, the arch could be just scoshed down a little bit, and then they'd be able to put it above the arch. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, and the way that when we read through that, and I did go through it several times, that I think it actually would be allowable, is that this right here is a freestanding structure. It's a structure. The signage, and it says in your regulations, the sign is the biggest square or triangle around the letters. So that technically this is the sign part, and this is really just the structure.
Right, but if you read the sign regulations, it says
It
it
is, but
can't be
it's-
higher than the roof line.
That's for an attached sign, though.
No, it's a building sign. The only way this sign would meet the regulations if you extended the roof over here.
Or if you made the arch
So
shorter.
if I,
You put like a fake roof right here and a fake roof right there. So other than that, that sign, the archway would have to be a little smaller and drop the sign down.
so wait, what did you
Yeah,
say?
go
I'm
to the
just,
zoning board of appeals and ask for a variance.
Right, and I was
We
just being
could- okay.
proactive. It would be terrible if you got
No,
all
I
your
appreciate it
approvals,
because this
and
is a key
lovely
thing.
building, and
Could-
then you go to the sign person, they go, oh, no, you can't have that.
Right.
The only thing that I might add is that, you know, when we're looking at pylon signs right now, and all the pylon signs are definitely higher than a lot of the buildings that are there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is not attached to the
So
building
he's
either.
suggesting it's going.
It's a separate
It's a
structure.
separate structure. There's a space between this sign and the building itself. So they are separate structures. So
and this is less than the height requirements for the zoning district. So that's
So
how
you're
we came
saying
up with
this is
that.
your pylon sign?
that their pylon sign is directly in front
It
of
is a
their
separate
their
structure.
building rather than out at the street.
I didn't see a specific section on pylon
I didn't
sign.
see that it wasn't attached. On my drawing, it looks like it is. I apologize.
But a pylon sign in your regulations is at an entrance. That's not the entranceway of the thing. I'm
So is this
not
considered-
opposed to that sign, and if there was a way to approve it, I'm fine. But Ginny raises a valid point.
Yeah.
Just don't want it to become an issue, and then everybody is kind of gathering the troops and circling.
No, we would
the
rather
troops
talk
and-
about it now than get to the 11th hour. But I did specifically look at that.
It's out there by itself. I didn't realize that.
Just see if I can find it.
So how much
Do you have
space
my
is there
notes, Tim?
between the arch and the actual building? Only because, the entrance thing.
Probably 2 feet.
See what I'm saying?
So
Like, foot?
freestanding signs.
It's like 3 feet, 3 feet.
somewhere between 3 and 5 feet.
So it says maximum height. If I'm on the table for signs and it says,
No, I'm just asking how much of a distance there is.
oh, between it?
3 feet.
3 feet, Ginny.
3
Let me
feet?
see. Let me,
Okay.
hang on.
I just, the way it's on the picture, it looks like it's attached. I'm just trying to. be
Because the
helpful.
only thing that I add is the sign is only 20 feet away from the property line. So basically, it's almost on their
Tim, do you
property
have-
line. So you could almost sort of,
Yeah.
Well, no, he scaled it
Can
out
you see
already.
it?
You don't need that.
3 feet.
Yes.
3 feet?
Can you see this right here? That's the
Yep.
sign, and this is the building.
Yep.
So my take on it was when I went to that sign chart, on page 116, it said freestanding other than Thompsonville, and it had, you could do it maximum height 20 feet, C note 2. So it was 20 feet, and this is I think it's 18, it's on here somewhere. I think it's 18.6, yeah, 18.6. Yeah. So that is where we came up with that, but I definitely would rather talk about it now because I know Roger said we have to come back for that, and I don't want to all of a sudden not be able to do the main thing that Dodge is trying to accomplish. And the difficult thing with this too is that it's like they mentioned, it's something that you have to buy directly from them instead of build it however we want it.
And I believe that's the smallest one they offer.
Bob said,
Yeah.
someone from our office said it's one size fits all.
They have
For
a
them.
taller one, but that
Yeah.
is the smallest
Yeah.
arch that they have.
But I do think it works.
Sign, it's a type C sign. So if you go to the approval condition for a type C sign, can this commission approve a type C sign? I'm looking at Ginny.
Jenny?
I'm sorry, I
Can
was,
this commission approve a type C sign?
yes, but I was looking at the
So you just
sign.
have to, you just have to determine that since that's a freestanding structure, it's a freestanding sign, and it's a type C sign, and you can approve it.
But on page 116 of 126 of the zoning regs, freestanding other excludes Thompsonville, so that would be business local. And it says the 32 square feet per side, if lot less than 3 acres and frontage at least 75 feet. So,
This lot is.
But on that definition of sign, it says that that's the letters, or the smallest box around the letter.
right, and it does say C sign, Roger, so they would have to be a C sign, type C sign.
Yeah, but a type C sign you can approve.
Right. That's being creative, so I think it sets a precedence. And I think it's a beautiful building. I love the front of it.
Thank you.
But I think to make it easy, it would just be drop the arch a little bit, because it's a decorative arch, and just put Artioli right above the arch where it is now.
We would love to be able to do that, but like I said, it's a pre-bought thing from Dodge, so for them it's all or nothing. Does it make a difference if we take these words off here? I mean, I would hate to take the letters off so that it wasn't considered a sign and it's just part of the structure, but if we take the letters off, does it make it work as it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
part of the structure?
Yeah, but you want
I know,
Artioli.
we do, and I think like
No
I
Aidioli on there at all, the Aidioli.
well, we'd have to put it, yeah, we'd have to do
Yeah,
something
but then
else.
it's not balanced.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm saying, I think when I read through that, I was going back and forth, and to me, I was like, okay, if it's a structure, if this is part of the structure,
Yeah.
and then this is the sign, and they say it's around the letters. It doesn't go up higher than, you know what I mean? It's not above it, and this is lower than 20 feet. It's lower than the height requirements for the zoning district. So it's considered its own separate structure.
We don't have to be talking about this right now.
Facade roof.
No, it's freestanding.
Yeah, but this is the smallest that Dodge makes it.
The smallest of
The height, that's the smallest.
No, the height of this is fine, but if you got smaller letters and
Oh,
you dropped it down a little bit, you'd be.
oh, you're trying to drop the,
Well, you're dropping the letters.
you're dropping only the letters.
I'm dropping only the letters. I'm leaving the structure. You're taking this and you're making the letters slightly smaller and drop them down. You're good.
I don't,
That would be
I don't
fine.
think it would fit.
Just so you'll know, and it is a type C sign, and that sounds like a reasonable thing, but it's not before us now. And I don't know how you would lump it in.
Well, no, you can as part of your, there's nothing that precludes you except your past
It's
practice
it's
is that, and I talking to the chairman, many commissions I've worked with over the years do approve the signs. In Enfield, what I'm told is because you spend so much time, like we're doing right now,
Yeah.
on signs,
That's what's
you don't
crazy.
like to deal with signs at meetings.
We do type C.
Yeah, and so, yeah.
That's
So,
meetings.
but if you wanted to, and you're okay with that sign, you could declare it a type C sign, a freestanding sign, and you could approve it as part of this package. We added a condition of approval,
It's right
that
in
that's
here
what you're
now.
approving.
You're discussing it. You know, it's in the pictures.
I know, and that's why I brought it up, because it's in the
Well,
pictures.
We would greatly appreciate if we didn't have to come back for it again. Obviously, that helps them, and
Well,
In that case, just put a
Roger,
condition to lower the letters.
I just don't know if that's possible.
Well,
That's
lower
why
the
I'm-
Letters.
Right, because see, this height of this structure and this canopy, this archway is set. They're elements that we have to purchase from Dodge.
well, you wouldn't have to come back, but your application would have to come back, because if we approve it now and it's not something that, as somebody near and dear to me always says, doable, then you have to come back or we cite you for a violation. So,
No, what's going to happen is, you know full well, is they apply for a sign permit to the director of planning, and then I have to decide
no.
whether it complies with the regulations or not, and then I'm going to tell them it doesn't, and then they're going to be upset, and phone calls are going to be made all over town, and that's what we're going to deal with. So
That's
it
why I
really,
brought it up
really,
now.
the commission needs to decide tonight. You like that sign? You don't like that sign?
Okay, but we're kind of blue skying it, like, well, we could make the letters smaller and bring it down. But what happens if for some reason you can't get smaller letters?
She's already said.
I don't
you
think
could.
it's going to look right either. If you put the letters right here and they're teeny tiny.
So
I
you're
mean,
going to take the letters off then?
That comes
I would love to do it like
pre-assembled,
this.
pre-made
Right.
from
See, and that's what I'm
Chrysler
saying.
itself.
If we approve it, it's going to be smacked up there, and what Roger's saying will come true.
Okay.
Everybody will
Then go
call.
back to what Roger suggested on the building itself. You said there are archways on either side of that building? On the building itself, raising the parapet?
Mr. Chairman, what I'm saying is, with respect to this sign, if you like the sign exactly the way it is, because it's not attached to the
Right.
building, you can consider it a freestanding sign. It meets all the requirements of a freestanding sign as a type C, and you can approve it as a part of this application. If you don't want to do that, and you consider it a building sign, then they either got to drop it or they got to put Artioli somewhere else.
Well, I know.
Do we have information about the
arguing?
total square footage of the square box around the?
So what are we spending all this time on?
It's a freestanding sign, we can approve it
Because it's a
prior to that.
freestanding sign, Charlie, and they're going to come, don't you have another sign up by the road? Or is this your only freestanding sign?
That sign will come,
There's one on the
this
corner.
one's coming down.
Yeah.
coming down.
Yeah,
This one right here, that existing
Okay,
sign is
so-
coming down.
replaced, and
The
that will-
And this one
artioli on
goes
the
above the
arch will
roof.
be your
This one is above the
only.
roof.
I think that should be put in the conditions of approval, that we're approving it tonight as a C sign based on the fact that there will be no other it's being
Yeah.
treated as their one and only freestanding sign, and that it also doesn't hurt the total coverage of the signage.
I think that makes sense, because this one is that 20-foot, you know what I mean? That one's taller.
Right, and that's what I remembered, so I
That
didn't
makes
know it was
sense.
coming down.
Okay. So that taken care of down there? Anything else? All right, then. The commission is finished with questions, or, okay. Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against the application? Last call to speak in favor or against the application. Hearing none, I will close public hearing 2891.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think what you guys did is you left the three separate lots be merged. I think the applicant agreed the final plans
that's in
would
your
be in
conditions of
accordance with your regulations. We had parking calculations be added to the final plans, that they number the outdoor display areas. We require that on all automobile dealerships now, so that we know that how many cars are supposed to be there. And then number 13 gets completely rewritten, and it says that landscaped plantings will be added along Enfield Street, but only at the two corner intersections. And then the last one is that the freestanding sign, the commission is approving the archway freestanding sign, but the existing freestanding sign will be removed.
Right, as a type C sign.
You good with that? I'm just gonna make
How
a
many
motion.
conditions? And, any problems, Mr. Artioli, with those conditions? No. Okay. Did they,
do have one, but is it too late now?
It's closed.
well, I've closed the hearing, yes.
I wanted to try and address that ACM not being consistent with the zoning.
Well, you got two members of the commission who will be in a minute, so.
Oh, okay, okay, good.
Anybody gonna make a motion?
Okay, yeah, but as the person that's going to make the motion, got all these addition to
Roger,
the,
just bringing it over to Rick.
well, Mary's going to do it.
She's going to read my writing.
Mary, Mary,
My notes.
Mary, please read this. Do the short,
Yes.
okay. Don't read the whole.
Mr. Chair, I move to, for approval of the resolution for public hearing 2891 dated December 4th, 2017 by the Planning Department with, there will be 33 conditions. Within the additional conditions added will be under 13, it will be changed to landscaping on, actually, plantings will be added to the street corners, and,
What street corner?
yeah, and along the streets, yeah. And then number, we'll say 13A, the commission is approving the freestanding type C sign with removal of the other freestanding sign as a condition of that. That's it.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? 700. Thank you. Mr. Artioli, I like your acting in the ads.
I was going to say, you should have, for us movie dummies, you should have on your website somewhere what it is. Because I love how energetic you are about what the car is, but I can never figure out what movie it's from.
We'll let them know that. Thank you.
And he's not going to dodge any questions.
No. He'll dart out of here, though, fast. Okay. SPR 7, I'm sorry, public hearing 2892, 54 Hazard Avenue. Secretary, please take the roll and read the legal notice.
The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, November 6th. No, wrong one. Oh. Oh, there he goes. Okay, I'm sorry. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, December 7th, 2017, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2892, 54 Hazard Avenue, special use permit for a tenant identification pylon sign located at 54 Hazard Avenue. Enfield Station LLC owner, Agnoli Sign Company Incorporated applicant, map 56, lot 26, Business Regional BR Zone. Dated this 4th day of December 2017, Charles Duran, Chairman. Information is available at the Enfield Planning and Zoning Office. Charles Duran.
Here.
Elizabeth Ballard. Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Sarah Gruber.
Here.
And Rich Suzak is here.
Okay. Why is she using the hand mic?
This is the one I took from home.
Christina Morrow from Magnoli Sign Company, and what our plan is to remove the existing pylon sign that is now on the Stop and Shop Plaza and replace it with a new pylon sign. They would like to incorporate their tenants on the Stop and Shop sign, which they do not have right now. The sign's going to be 25 foot high. It's going to have 10 tenant panels and the Stop and Shop panel on the top. It's going to have 2 brick piers on the bottom. It's a cultured stone, a Chardonnay limestone cultured stone on the bottom. And aluminum pole covers, aluminum top, and LED lighting.
It's cold in here.
I'm freezing.
Questions from the commission for the applicant?
Because I noticed that you have 17 tenants in the
Yeah, I
back there, or
was-
16 tenants, and there's just 10, slots?
Well, those panels can be cut, if they're, say, 2 small tenants want to split one of those panels on the bottom. Right now, they only have 5 tenants on board. I don't know how they're, if they're offering each one of the tenants, I don't know if they have to pay or if they have, or what.
Okay, that's,
Right now, they only have those 5 tenants on board, and the bottom can be modified a little bit for each tenant. It wouldn't change the square footage of the sign at all. It would just share a panel.
Do they slide in and out the panels?
The top is one sign, and the bottom is a second sign.
Yep.
And right now, it's just like a vinyl divider bar. So if, say, somebody took up one whole half of the plaza, it could be one panel for them, versus the way it's split up here.
of the 10 panels, though, I think what she's asking, can you pop each one out separately?
No.
So how do you,
It's one sign with vinyl dividers.
so what happens when the tenant goes?
You take the vinyl off and you put new vinyl on.
Sorry, I don't know signs, I guess.
Just out of curiosity, Roger or Charlie, when this was approved, the pylon language, the new signs, do we have a tenant, a tenant sign theme? In other words, right now they all look in accordance with each other, but you could have somebody that's logo is purple and orange and script lettering. Would that be allowed? Usually there's a sign theme for a shopping center, And I'm just wondering about that. That's why I asked if it could be slid in and out.
Yeah, it's a valid question. What they're proposing is to be able to put up whatever colors and logos the tenants have, and that they not be in a thing. Some towns regulate the color themes, and so they may say that
We do
all
that.
of the tenants.
So on
We do
the
that.
building signs,
Yeah.
we haven't given a thought on these yet, I
Well,
don't know.
because we
Yeah.
only had the Stop and Shop Plaza. We didn't have like a whole bunch of different
No, I
things.
know.
We had
right.
one for Kohl's. The Kohl's one last
yeah.
session was the same thing.
Yeah.
We
The
get
concern
allowed-
I would have is if you start splitting up those panels, though, you get to the point where you can't read them. And I would suggest that if there are 10 panels, that's 10 names and not 20 names, because if you make 20 names in there, it's going to be indecipherable.
You wouldn't even be able to, yeah.
And maybe their intention is to only have 10 tenants, but right now they only have 5 on board.
Well, if
because
it
they
shows
only
10,
asked us
that's
for
what
the
they're
5.
getting is 10, you understand that. That's why I believe we had, on the Coles Plaza, there were more than 10. The only thing I would think, if you wanted more, is to decrease the size of the Stop and Shop. I don't know why that has to be so large.
Because they incorporate half of that plaza. That's
Oh, I
why.
know, more than half.
So-
No, that's right, they're the owner, but.
They're paying the most money at this point.
But the entire word plaza doesn't have to be there, and you could get 2 more tenant signs if you
Yeah.
wanted to at some point.
I don't know if that was a town thing originally, because all of Stop and Shop signs do not have the word plaza underneath them. That's not a Stop and Shop thing, because we do all their work. And
The only other thing is that, based upon what the commission did with the Coles, the street number would have to be on the sign someplace.
Yes, we can incorporate that on the top. We can put that on the top.
So if you took off Plaza, then you could have 12 panels.
Right.
Saying,
Hypothetically.
which have to apply for.
Right now, they're not looking for 12, they're only looking for the
Well, they would have
10
to come
panels.
They'll have to come back.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to
Okay.
increase it.
You guys, you get to do another sign.
But right now, they're only looking for 10, and only 5 of them are on board. And they're all corporate tenants, and they have their corporate colors, really.
And those plans that were submitted made reference to another sign, a monument sign,
That's on the side street.
right, and
It's
I
a
just want to
gas
make
sign.
clear for the commission that you're not proposing any changes to that sign.
No,
That's why I
that's
was
a
going to
gas
ask
sign.
if they were going to put something like this on the other side, because the outbuildings, you have the gas station. I guess people just have to know it's there.
I think that is a gas sign on that side street.
Okay.
That's a little gas sign.
And you have the car parts store out front, and that may be a separate.
That's a separate.
As a sign of its own.
They have a sign just on the wall, I guess,
Yeah, advanced, yeah.
and then yeah. And I think there was one, 99 is in there too.
Yeah, they got the sign. too.
They've got their own sign.
Yeah, 99 has their own, too.
Okay, so we aren't doing, no signs on Palumba, is it, or
No,
Freshwater?
Not at the moment.
Okay,
just this one sign.
all right. Any more questions? All right, anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor against this application? Last call to speak in favor against this application. Hearing none, I'll close public hearing 2892.
Okay. We're going to add a condition about can only be 10 names on that.
Yep.
All right, we have a number. The number needs to.
You're right, under site-specific conditions, I guess you would add like 5A and 5B.
Do we need a condition, though, that says that when we were approving the plans as they were given to us, that only have 10 slots there? Because I don't think we had a similar condition in the Kohl's sign. We just approved the plans as they were given to us.
No, there were some conditions down below because we allowed them to take a for rent sign and put it in, and when the
Right, but I don't think we specifically approved a number. We were just approved the plans that were given to us and disallowed an owner
We
identification
approved
sign.
12 panels.
12 panels.
Did it say 12 in the?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind, sorry.
But I think it's the sense of the commission, so that if they were to come in and want to divide those up, that we would just
It'd be
say,
worthless.
no. The whole notion when approving these was they were of such
Any
size
discussion?
as
Can
to
we-
be readable.
Roger, can we wrap this up, please?
What do we?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to move then for the approval of the resolution for public hearing 2892 dated December 7th, 2017 by the Planning Department with 16 conditions with the addition of number 6 under site-specific conditions where the street number be added to the sign and only 10 tenant identification signs are allowed.
Second.
Second, but that's 10 in addition to the Stop and Shop sign.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's how it reads.
Well, Stop and Shop is a tenant too, so that makes actually 11.
We should.
They're two separate areas, but yes.
Okay.
Or plus the 10, or put in there plus the stop and
sign
shop.
Plus Stop and Shop.
Are you going to add in that we would allow the removal of plaza to add 2 more or not? So that they don't have to come in? No? All right.
You asked for 10 to get 10.
All right.
No.
I get a second on that?
The
Well, second.
motion was made, second. Any
I have nothing
discussion?
further, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor? Any opposed? No abstentions, unanimous. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see, where are we? SPR 1728. 55 Hazard Avenue.
Now, Mr. Borghese, you're on.
It was a rehearsal of walking up and down, that's all.
Oh,
Way past my bedtime.
oh.
The short circuit this and move it along. This is the plaza that we talked about, where it has urgent care on one side, and it has a parts place in the middle, and the third place is going to be a doctor's office. And in reviewing it, the ART has always asked that we try to address it when it ever came in, because the ambulances and the fire trucks go down and they got a dead end and they got to stop. So we were in contact with Mr. Borghese, who is the site engineer and he's also a part owner, and he's been very cooperative, and they did agree to design a driveway around. And the other issue was the parking was, even though it met the regulations, was short. So they designed a little more parking in the back. They went to wetlands on Tuesday night, and they approved the detention basin, and all the water is going away from the wetlands. And that's all I have to say.
Oh, I had one question, Roger. You said the doctor's office is next to the parts store. They just run next door and get what they need?
What was the question?
The question is, how did the doctors get through the parts store to the urgent care?
No, I said, do they just run next door and get the parts they need?
For their surgery.
Yeah, you know, a hip.
Yes,
Yeah. Shoulder.
I really don't know if I have to say very much, but the issue here, if you understand what the building is, the entrance is to the parking lot. This is, by the way, Hazard Avenue. It's a private driveway. The entrances are here, and this was a dead-end parking lot. I never liked, from an engineering aspect, a dead-end parking lot. Roger approached us and asked us if we... Almost any situation, but especially this, because from what I understand, the ambulances and the fire emergency vehicles had a real problem turning around. He asked us to actually bring the driveway around, and he was clever enough to see the possibilities here. It's all grass here. Bring it around the building and reconnect to the same driveway. Excellent layout. At the same time, we have the option of adding additional parking here, which the site did require. And what you see here is the plantings that are all here. We've actually added one tree here, and shrubs around this dock here. This loading dock is required and is being used by the auto parts place. I think this will be an enhancement of the site, and as was stated, Wetlands approved it on Tuesday, and we would like approval, if we can, on this. The doctors are ready to open their facility up, and I think there's nothing negative to this aspect of the approval here. But any questions you have, I'd be very happy to answer.
So the doctors are in addition to the urgent care?
On one side, there's doctors, on the other side is urgent care, correct.
So it's two separate
Thank
you.
users.
Primary care in the new office and emergency care in the other office.
And I didn't notice, and usually we ask on the parking lots, I didn't notice a maintenance schedule on for the catch basins or the parking lot itself.
It was on the wetlands application, I believe. And if you want to add that as one of the conditions, we'd be very happy to take that.
We've always had it on the plans themselves, that the parking lot needs to be swept, so I forget that. And that the catch basins are inspected and cleaned.
And please add that to the approval process if you decide to approve this.
Yeah.
Because the only thing I did notice is that you have a small scale plan here that shows, I guess the delineation of the 100-year flood zone line, because I was concerned that you were raising the grades without compensating for, some volumes that were not necessarily possibly being utilized. But seeing that you're totally out of the flood zone, you're fine.
Actually, may I comment on that for you?
Sure.
We actually have, because we installed a detention basin, we've actually increased the storage capacity below the 115 grade in the range of about 130 yards of actual increase in floodplain storage.
Right. Well, depending on where the flood line was, you were on the border there. So
Okay.
I was concerned of that you were maybe, above or below that flood zone. But now that I see it, you have delineated it. But I think that what we should do is make reference to the fact that we have, this SP1 with the revision on it rather than the plans that we did get in our packet, because our plans in our packet are...
Right, what we gave you was the wetland submission site plan, which has the detention bases on, which wasn't part of the original presentation. And so you're right, that should be referenced.
Right, so that we are referencing the entire package, because otherwise I would have a bunch of questions.
Right.
But that does
That's
clarify.
good point.
So I think that, we need to change that date.
Any further questions? Ooh. Anything to add, Roger?
No,
Now's
sir.
your chance. Okay. Anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor or against this application? Last call, speak in favor or against the application. Roger, I've got two numbers here, one on my drawing and one on the thing. Which one do you want to use?
Okay, so what happened was that he applied with one application number. Then when he came back and added the roadway around and the parking, he was given a second application number. So we merged them all under 1728.
Okay, so I'll close public SPR 1728. I didn't need to call for talking in favor. Okay.
So the only two things you're adding to the proposed resolution that I know of, and you're free to add others or subtract, is that you're adding the wetland site plan from Tuesday night, and I guess that's the only one thing.
Okay.
That all it was, Rich? This is,
Yeah, yes.
What about the maintenance schedule? Is that on the wetlands?
Oh, and the maintenance schedule, that is on the wetlands.
Okay, it is on the wetlands. Okay,
approval.
that's what I needed to know.
Well,
Okay.
put it on here, make sure it
Okay,
goes on here.
I'll do it as, no problem.
Depends on who checks what drawing.
What about, I wasn't at the meeting Tuesday night, but what about, one of the members on wetlands is adamant about snow stockpiling. Did they already say
The
anything
only
about that?
additional item that they
We're
put,
under this, let's finish this up,
Okay.
please, and
Right.
do that after.
Okay, no, the only reason I mentioned it is because if it's not on the other one, it should be on this one.
Well, all right.
the only thing that the Wetlands Commission added to the submitted plans was that they didn't really add, the snowplow storage came up. Mr. Borghese convinced the commission that he had adequate snow storage and it wasn't going to impact the wetlands.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Who's gonna do the honors? I don't know.
Mr. Chair, I move the approval of the resolution for public hearing 17, actually not public hearing, SPR 1728, dated December 7th, 2017, by the Planning Department with, let's see, 25 conditions and an additional 2 conditions added in under site-specific. First being number 8, that a wetland site plan from the Wetlands Commission meeting on 12/5/17 be added, and 8A will be add a maintenance schedule to the site plans.
For the maintenance schedule for the parking lot and the storm.
Okay, for the parking lot and for the storm drains, add a maintenance schedule to the site plans.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, under discussion, there is one thing I forgot to bring up. The doctors are ready to move in, and the applicant asked whether he could be allowed to allow that primary care to open prior to, he will post the bonds for all the work, but prior to the driveway being put in and the extra parking. What I suggested was that I would ask this commission if you were amenable to giving them a temporary zoning
To
permit.
me, what I would say is that that's up to the police and fire, or especially fire.
Well, if the police and fire are okay, but I'm saying is not.
Well, as far as, the
temporary
rest of
zoning
it,
permit for them to work.
Yeah.
while construction.
Temporary zoning permit to get them up and running?
A
yes.
time frame though on that, I mean, what are we
Well,
looking
yeah,
at?
we're talking about until, construction season.
Okay. Okay, so then we probably need to add in a specific date for that, just to be on the,
Right, site improvements would be done by, July 1st, June 30th, July 1st, whatever.
That makes sense because we actually approved the medical use without the change to the
Right.
parking lot, so that makes sense.
Okay.
somebody added.
Well, you want that into the conditions?
No, I mean, as long as you're okay with it, that's what we'll do.
Will you put a note in
So
the
that's
file
separate
then?
than this.
Yeah, we'll give them a zoning permit and it says site improvements to be
confusing where I
done
am
by
at.
June 30th.
Vote on,
Haven't voted.
that's what I thought. We
Was it
anyone second the
seconded?
motion?
Second?
I seconded it.
No, it's been made and seconded, we got sidetracked here. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. All right, now,
Thank you very much.
now we gotta now you wanna, you wanna vote on that, Roger? To allow them to operate earlier?
If you're, I mean, I think it's,
consensus?
I think a temporary zoning permit is always in order for a director of planning. I just want to make sure you're okay with that.
That's
fine.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, sounds like it's consensus.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Triano, I believe, is interested in this next one. It's good to see you. 824, resolution. Roger, is this past the council yet, or is this prior to the council voting on it? Because I see there's no resolution number.
I was given it prior to the council meeting on Monday night. I know they discussed it Monday night. I don't know. Perhaps you can. Do you know whether they voted on it? I thought they were going to vote on it on the next meeting, and which is why they would want your report for the next meeting. But I honestly
Usually they
don't
vote
know.
first, and then,
Do you know?
yeah,
Forward it to us for a recommendation.
yes.
When they voted and wanted to have it go forward to put on their agenda for discussion at the next meeting to be transferred.
Oh, so they just voted to put it on their next agenda.
Yeah, we do it first and then it goes to them. I said,
No, usually it's the other way around. They vote on it, then they send it to us, and then if we say no, they have to override it. So
Well, yeah, sometimes they did. They do it all kinds of ways.
yeah, so I just wanted to know what status this is at. So we're doing it before they do. So when they take their vote, they'll have to go three quarters. No, they won't have to ask us. But if we
It's
say
already
no
asked.
to it, then they'll have to
Yeah, then they'll have to
three quarters.
override it, that's all.
Okay. It's two applications, and I didn't figure out, because on Roger, and you can help me out. Lot 2, I understand, is the piece in back of the building. And then I looked at the map given that shows Lot 7, and I couldn't find Lot 7.
Oh, lot 7's right. Where are we here?
I don't know, I see a 25 down here, a number 25, but I don't see any Lot 7. I think it's,
It's down, I'll show you on this.
Is it this whole thing over here?
yes, I think that's
It's
it.
lot
That's
7 there,
lot
the
7
triangle
right here.
lot.
But does that go all around the pond too?
Yeah, are we
No,
giving them all?
We're just doing right here, though.
Doing a portion of it.
But see, that's not what was demonstrated, that's why I wasn't quite concerned.
It's part of the thing that
Says
goes all the way around,
conveyance
but you're
of a
not giving them
portion.
that. You're only giving them.
cutting it off right
You're
there.
only giving them this little portion.
So this
here.
little piece where he
This
comes
little-
out?
Yeah.
See where it says conveyance of a portion of map 25 lot 7.
Yeah, but it was never identified where Lot 7 was.
It
that's
also
all.
says,
Lot 7.
Because it said, they also said it was on Central Street, and Central Street is way over.
That's just the way the assessor's thing identifies this parcel is on Central Street.
It would seem.
Charlie, it
as-
also says so that you have to
Yes,
have access to the freshwater
Well, that's what
pond,
we
so
added
that's- yeah.
as a
But
recommendation.
see right here, located
that-
along
that
freshwater pond, adjacent.
We
on the-
suggested to the commission that when you send the report back to the council, that it be with the proviso that public access is maintained to that walkway.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And this explains to like north side to 878 Enfield Street, so adjacent on the north side. So it kind
does that affect the town
Well, I know,
sign
but I was going by
structure?
the
You know how
types
the
of
town
maps.
has a sign out in front of that building?
Yeah.
Is that affected? Because I know it's on the town.
With that building, but Mr. Toronto has always been nice enough to allow
No.
everything in the world to go up there.
No,
Yeah, yes.
that was on town property. I'm sure that Mr. Triana would still allow it, but I'm bringing up the question so that,
But you're not approving any plan for that right now.
no,
All
but you're
doing is-
approving
all you're
selling
doing-
that
all
off.
you're doing is, I mean, I think we did give you the rendering.
Yes.
There's a
yes,
little piece,
Yes, that's what,
But technically, you're not looking at
no, we're not.
well, I was because of what's on it. It's town property.
yeah, because that's why at the 4th of July, we parked
You
on
can
it.
see it here, too. That's this piece.
Yeah,
Could I ask a question? Could we get an explanation as to what we're trying to achieve here, so that we get the big picture of, why we're
Put an
sort of.
airport there.
Yeah, well, in the packet, we gave you the preliminary conceptual drawing of what Mr. Triano is actually proposing, which is a bank.
two-story building.
Do you have it there in front of you?
Yes.
Yes. Because
So,
right.
but if you're not actually voting on that, but bear in mind that the result of your action would be if the town goes through and sells that property, that Mr. Trano is very likely to come back with a project that's very similar to that, which then you can, evaluate according to how you evaluate anything.
I guess my question is that right now, everything is right up to the street line. So the town doesn't have any, tree line
Sure, I thought.
area between the road and the property of the owner. So is the owner going to maintain like all the improvements that are, just up to his property, or is the town going to be maintaining everything that's on one side of the sidewalk and he maintains everything that's on the other side of the sidewalk?
Well,
and
I went and I asked the town manager these questions in order to be able to advise the commission, and what I was advised by the town manager is those things are all subject to negotiation in the terms of the purchase and sale. So I would assume that those things would be negotiated out. If you're asking me as the director of planning, I would say whatever got approved there at some point in time, you would want to make sure that if that property owner is enjoying that area, that they maintain it. And I actually did discuss with the town manager the fact that if you got a sidewalk in front of you and that sidewalk provides access to a trail, that might be the property owner's responsibility. So, but the bottom line is none of those things are agreed to as far as I'm being told. Mr. Trano can speak to it, and he would know better.
He's going to put this road in.
No, it is.
Because I guess the question that I have is that, I believe that there's some conflict between conforming and non-conforming, areas, and where there, is additional required area in order to create a certain, I guess, buildable or acceptable, building lot.
Yeah, those maps.
And, recognizing that, this is the Thompsonville section, that, seeing that we're sort of revising our zoning regulations, that we don't necessarily get caught up in our current regulations that sort of restrict improvements on a certain parcel of land based upon, zoning regulations that might be archaic. And that, what we need to do is address the big picture, is that look at long-term in terms of, rather than have these, situations that, are trying to, address something that might be presently non-conforming, but in the long run will be conforming, that, if we can maintain, certain, aspects of, what the town controls and what the town doesn't control, that that would be in a looking towards the future in terms of once something happens, you're not going to go back, and you can never go back. So that all of a sudden, if we have this road strip and all of a sudden we just terminate it at this point, that it seems to me that it doesn't make any sense. That because all of a sudden we'd lose control of that part of whatever's going on there, and whoever does own it controls it. So that I think that if there is some aspect that, the development cannot continue because of the fact that it would be non-conforming, that we should be looking at our regulations for that area, recognizing how constricted and what the limitations of developing some of those properties are, so that we don't lose sight of the fact that
Right, and
That would be a good
we're
workshop.
doing that. I just want to say that
This is just 824.
Yeah.
This proposal that's come forth is coming through, has been shepherded by the Director of Development Services. So there's been no review by the planning office as to whether this additional land is necessary to conform to zoning, or whether there's some other available way to achieve that development on the corner in the absence of conveying this land. We haven't been asked to do that. We haven't been involved. We haven't done it. And for the first time, when we got the 824 is when we saw what land was being proposed to be transferred, at which point when we determined that what was being conveyed was a pathway around the brook, we wrote into the recommendation going back, and for this commission, our recommendation that public access should be maintained, and we left open how it's done. But this is not a proposal that has come through pre-application assistance through the planning division.
Well, what we're deciding is, does this basically align with our plan of conservation and development when we make this referral, that it's regarding whether or not this is a part of what we're trying to do by having the conveyance of this land, in essence. That's really what we're determining, correct?
Right. When you're looking at an 824, you're saying is the sale or disposition of the property consistent with your plan of conservation and development. Now, the resolution that went to the council that's in your packet says that the council determined there's no public purpose for the property. I don't think that's quite accurate because there is a public purpose. It is certainly for one of the parcels, there is a walkway that is part of a public amenity, which is a walkway around the brook.
Was this
So
something
that is a public amenity. So I would, and that's why when we saw that, we said, well, as long as public access is maintained, I think it could be a public-private arrangement. And it worked fine, but the details are yet to be worked out.
Is this one of those things, though, that could be accomplished with an easement of sorts, a right-of-way, or something that could be conveyed back to the
What I'm
town?
saying is, we haven't done any analysis,
Right.
the planning office, as to how to accomplish this particular purpose in any other way. But yes, in answer to your question, it probably could be accomplished without actually transferring the land.
Well, I have a question. I mean, how is this different from somebody owning a property on Enfield Street with a sidewalk along their property that people have access to? So how is it different, that access point there? There's a sidewalk, there's a walkway.
Because the sidewalks is in the public right of way and not on their property. Here you're selling the sidewalk to a private owner.
You're selling the sidewalk, and that will not be considered.
That's right, it won't be private property.
It will not. It'll be considered private property then. Is that what you're
that's
trying
what
to say?
that's why we're saying that it should public access along the sidewalk and access to the brook and to the pond, ultimately to the pond, should be maintained. I mean, we wouldn't want them to have to go past that bank property and then get in to the walkway. And I don't think that's the intention. So, I mean, we're supportive of the notion of developing that corner, and certainly it could be developed in a nice way. But I'm saying, I'm agreeing that if this was put together and started down this path of we must transfer this in order to get enough of a development parcel to accomplish that, I haven't seen that backup.
Can you explain to me, like, so you're living in a neighborhood and you have a sidewalk that runs down the front of your property. So it still is your property up to...
No. A lot of times there's a road strip. There's from the road to your property.
You still have to maintain it. You still have to take care of it.
Right.
So on and so forth. So in essence, yes, it is your property, but it has a right-of-way access to it.
No, it doesn't belong to you. And actually, this is a whole interesting conversation, and I don't know, but this is before the commission right now, and you remember a month or so ago, Secretary Swezak made the motion that we actually put a committee together with the council, because in Enfield, the town is responsible for the maintenance of sidewalks. Many other communities, the homeowner is responsible. So you remember, because a sidewalk was defective on Hazard Avenue, the town manager had it torn up, and now there's no sidewalk there. Apparently, historically in Enfield, the town has assumed the responsibility for maintenance of sidewalk. I know in other places I've lived, if the sidewalk was deficient, I got a notice from the city and I had to repair the sidewalk. And so, yeah, and so that is something. So right now, if that walkway, the city's responsible for it. If the ownership went to the private property owner, I guess that private property owner, if that sidewalk's now on them, they would be responsible for it. But then you've got the whole issue of what if somebody falls down on it?
So he'd have to have the liability.
Yeah, so I mean, there are a lot of issues that have to be resolved. So that's why in our attempt to move this along, we just wrote into your resolution going back to the council, and in my discussion with the town manager, I think everybody's on board, and the developer is here and he could speak to it. But as long as there is an assurance that with the transfer of this, you're not taking away public access to that walkway, I think you'd be okay.
I think we're worrying too much, or because Town of Enfield has a legal department. All we're doing is giving, yes, we think it's okay to sell it, or no, we don't think it's okay to sell it. But if yes, we think it's okay to sell it, and the council is urging us to do that, then the legal options and the legal questions will be handled by our legal department before the sale goes through.
Is there a reason why we can't postpone this to the next meeting?
Well, they
Because we have
want to
35
vote.
days.
They want to vote on it at their
But if we have legal questions
at their
about
next meeting. But to answer Commissioner Higley's point about if you're saying, oh, we don't have any problem and this is fine, but your plan of conservation and development includes that water amenity in Thompsonville, and that is part of your plan. And if selling this meant that the access to that water amenity was going to be truncated or not available, then you probably wouldn't forward a favorable recommendation because it wouldn't be consistent with your plan.
Roger,
But that's my point is-
This pathway was part of Peter's plan for all of the bike access and access down to the boat launch, which the rest of the bike path or the path hasn't been done.
Right. So I think the only way to answer this is ask the developer: is he okay if he was to get this property with maintaining public access? If he is, then there's no problem of putting in your resolution to the council. We're okay with it, provided public access is maintained, and then go with Commissioner Higley said, let the legal department figure it out.
Yeah, that's the way it has to, I would guess. It's got to go.
I guess the only other thing is that I guess I'm not against like lot number 2. You know, obviously that has nothing to do with, you know, the pathway and the right of way and everything else. But it's that lot number 7. Is that really necessary for him to develop his land? And that's the whole question in terms of.
I think he's going to come up and tell
you know,
you.
and
Well,
yeah,
I was wondering if looking at what talking with Charlie, the only reason he wants that is to have access to that back-end parking lot that we can personally use on the 4th of July, where we go across off of High Street or off of.
Mr. Chairman, is it okay if the developer
Sure.
speaks?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. It's good thing he's here.
I left a holiday party, make sure I came here. This is more exciting than the holiday party. Thank you very much. The entity that owns it, I'm a member manager of, it's Triano Properties LLC. It owns the property right now. The property is at 878 Enfield Street. The 2 parcels that we're inquiring upon, we've been working with Mr. Cirillo. I think I'll back up a little bit and go to the sidewalk question just to clarify that. In our discussions with Mr. Cirillo, it has been extremely helpful in making sure that he actually was very thorough. We actually did talk about the sidewalks. This is one of the biggest conversations because with the transfer, the responsibility, but the town has goals as well regarding bike paths, possible grant money, and all those things. And whatever they saw fit to make sure that we maintained it save the town the money on the maintenance of that sidewalk, which is now a pretty large chunk of that area running down along North Main Street. That is going to be our responsibility. And they would write it in there if they sought the need. We already gave the approval of if they thought the need or not, it's up to them, not us. But we're already agreeable to that entire discussion that you've been having regarding sidewalks. Regarding the signage out front, we're going to actually incorporate that in our future plans. That's part of our expectation to actually maintain that and actually enhance that corner where it should be and kind of match up the other sides that are
All your
on
other
the road.
buildings are lovely, so I'm sure
Thank
you
you.
would do.
Oh,
But
yeah,
we're
you
just
do.
on the 824 right
Correct.
now.
And was there another question? I'm sorry.
No, I don't know. That's,
So there's your answer. So as long as your resolution says that the public access needs to be maintained, because that makes it consistent with the plan of conservation and development, there's no reason not to vote a favorable recommendation.
need the sidewalk.
Wow, that's what I'm wondering. Mm.
I guess the question is, do they need the sidewalk, though? That piece of land, what does that add to their building? Is it setback or what?
Well, I assume that it was put in there because of the bulk requirements, which is probably the minimum area, lot area size. And to Commissioner Sweezak's point, we are looking at all of those questions, and we don't know what the timing is or anything else. But if there's a portion of this property that could be transferred to a private developer, which says that developer is going to maintain public access and maintain the property,
I don't know.
that sounds good.
Well, okay. Okay. Any further questions, ladies and gentlemen? So,
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the 824 referral for the conveyance of map 25 lot 2 located adjacent on the west side to 878 Enfield Street, and the conveyance of a portion of map 25 lot 7 located along the freshwater pond adjacent on the north side to 878 Enfield Street. Now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby forwards a favorable recommendation to the Enfield Town Council for the conveyance of map 25 lot 2 located adjacent to the west of 878 Enfield Street, and a conveyance of a portion of map 25 lot 7 located along the freshwater pond and adjacent to the north of 878 Enfield Street. TV zone for both as long as public access is maintained along Freshwater Brook and to and from Freshwater Pond.
Second.
it's bulk and he needs, let's see what the, okay.
Made and seconded.
We can still discuss it,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, because I guess, again, my only concern is that, and I guess, the question becomes, do we, want to maintain and control as much of this property as possible just for our, own control versus, allowing somebody else to
that's up to the
have
council, I
access
guess.
to.
Well, it sounded like, we're wondering if supposedly there's a piece where there was goals that the town would like to turn over that maintenance of that and not be responsible for that maintenance of that sidewalk, which is a town issue. It's a money, it's probably a monetary issue. So I think that is something with the council and, the Director of Development Services has to deal with some of those pieces of why we're going in that direction.
And actually, well, the extent of it, I imagine, in terms of, right now we have a pictorial of what it is, and, I don't have a clue exactly where that delineation is, and whether the delineation, and obviously, in that vein, why don't we give them all of lot number 7, where he can maintain the sidewalk all the way around the pond, and as long as he's going to have to maintain it, why don't we, why are we only giving him a portion of lot number 7?
I hear what you're saying, but we're just here for the 824. We can't look at his building or
I know.
how much of it
that's-
is he
that's-
We're not
needs.
going to rewrite it, we're just going to.
I know. Obviously, I'm all for minimizing our aspect, but I think that if the actual reason was that it was required for bulk requirements or setback requirements, that we have control over that, and we should recognize the fact that, we should not be
Not
doing,
needed.
yeah, we
Okay.
should not be doing this for the sake of zoning regulations. It's right now, it's a monetary thing that the town thinks is in the best interest of the town, but not necessarily, it should be a driving factor from here on in, that everybody who wants to develop a parcel of land is going to come to the town and say, oh, I see you have a piece of conservation land here, and, you're not using that conservation land, and why don't you give it to us, and, we'll take care of that little sidewalk here, but now all of a sudden we can build a bigger building.
This went
that
in
kind
the
of
wrong direction. It went to the director of
Maybe-
plant of.
You could
So,
have
but I,
a longer turnaround time in the future. Maybe the council can give us more time so that this doesn't happen to the next person who comes along.
Yeah, but they accepted this from what?
This has been a discussion for a long time. I mean, there's been a long.
But where, you said it didn't come through planning office.
No, I'm just saying that we didn't. No, in the sense of have I had discussions with Mr. Trano about what he wants to accomplish on the corner and like how it should be oriented and where the drive-through should go and so forth? Absolutely. And has he been responsive to some suggestions we made? Absolutely, as he always is. But the question became like, is there a way to do this under zoning without conveying this land? And that's what I said. I don't know, because it's never been presented in that way.
So,
Council wants to convey it, so.
Yeah. So I mean, like you said, I think that what we need to do is sort of differentiate, if something's being done for convenience or something's being done because it's required to be done.
Right,
And I
but
think that
I
eventually.
think that's a valid point,
Yeah,
but I
'cause we
think
have
that we
it.
are on a limited turnaround time. And I think that it should be brought to everyone's attention going forward that PCC would appreciate a longer turnaround time so that we can look into the plan of conservation and development, and we can actually visit the little things that they want to give away. And
But doesn't 824 give us 35 days, and wasn't this given,
Oh,
this was sent to us 2 days ago?
If you don't want to act on this,
Right.
you don't
So
want to
we
act
have
on this
turnaround time. We're
tonight,
just
you don't
choosing not
have to
do it.
act on it. All I'm doing is I'm being an honest broker. I was asked by the town manager to bring it forth because they would like to have the council act on this at their next meeting, which is prior to your next meeting.
Okay.
so we had the motion and we had a second.
No, right, yeah.
Are we
yeah.
finished, or
So
do we need to
discuss it. If
we
it-
discuss
if
this?
we
Want to
for it.
vote or not?
Well, you can vote no, or it's either up or down.
This is the end of the meeting.
You ready to vote? All in favor?
Yes, sorry.
Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 2, so it's 5-2. Okay, well, so it's up to the town attorney then, really. Okay,
Well, also, if it goes through, has to be an application from the developer for the development there, and when you look at that application, you would have the ability
Yes.
also to
move it back
to
a bit.
require public access be maintained and work out those things as a condition of your approval.
Or
It's a
the
separate issue.
town, when it sells the parcel, can decide to keep an easement
Yeah.
or right of way.
Yeah,
It could be in the deed.
I mean, it may come up when it comes here that he doesn't need that property for some reason, I don't know, because that gives you a chance to take a look.
He could sell it back to the town for twice.
Right, that's right. Okay. Thanks. Okay, let's take care of the calendar, ladies and gentlemen. Watch your holidays and,
Who put
any
the
celebrations we
calendar
should
together?
look at.
You did?
Jen.
Oh, okay. I just was curious as to who did it. I figured one of you did it. Thank you.
Any questions on it? We're doing the dates.
Well, I'm just looking at August. Isn't August our month off? and I think that obviously we could always add things if there's a significant workload, but if there's not a significant workload, I think that
I think that's
we
a
should
good
lean
idea.
towards possibly minimizing the meetings in August just so that we can enjoy our summer a little
Right,
longer.
the only reason we had an August one this year was because we hit a holiday.
Yeah, the holiday.
The
The only thing I would say about the August thing is August is one of your busiest periods where developers want to get things done that they're then trying to get in. And just with the calendar, if you put a meeting date down as a regular meeting, and then you can bring up any subject you want on the at the meeting on the agenda. If you decide later you're going to need a meeting in August, and then it's going to be a special meeting, and you can only put items on there that you want. So you could schedule a meeting in August and then cancel it, or you can wait and schedule a special meeting. It's totally your preference.
Roger, what I've always done is we've left this blank, and I've always said, and whoever might follow me or whatever takes place, is if it's needed and the person is actually ready and not trying to have us do the work for them, is to get 4 people and have a special meeting. And that's what we've always done, and and people that have been ready, we've had special.
The only
meetings.
other thing is people want to know when to schedule vacations.
Exactly.
And
That's
so, if you could give us some sense if you were going to have a special meeting in August, when would it be?
No.
And then you don't have to put it on that calendar that we file with the town clerk.
Well, we just check. Oh, it doesn't make any difference. As long as out of the 7 people I can get 4, we have a meeting. So, I mean, that's usually not a problem. Never has been.
Okay.
We got these alternates
So,
to fill in if we can.
I know.
How about any of these other dates on the people? Okay, then it seems good.
You just deleted August.
Huh?
You deleted August.
Deleted August. Now, let's take a vote. All in favor of schedule with August taken out. Okay. Yeah, you can take, all in favor, so it's unanimous of the crew that's here.
Thank you.
Okay.
It also gives staff time. Usually August is the time that you go through the files and everything.
I haven't found a slow month here yet, Jenny.
Oh,
Correspondence.
I know, that's why they carved August
You
out.
have zoning practice ordinance testing,
Maybe I'll give them time to fix the heating system.
and, and the last is any commissioners' correspondence.
Yes, I do have something. Is Roger?
Linda?
I just had one thing is I wanted to bring to Roger's attention, since we had Artioli here and we were talking about his cars being parked close to the road. This evening, I was driving down Enfield Street and Kia has their cars parked on the grass in front of their property right alongside the road. It's right across the street from us here
Right,
at
there's
Town
three.
Hall.
There were 2 trucks. There are now 3 trucks.
There was.
They have been given violation notices, and under the ordinance, once they've been given a violation notice, we don't have to give them another one. We can go immediately to the fine ordinance. He was apprised this week that he's subject to a $150 a day fine for those 3 trucks, effective immediately. But this is probably I know it's on more than one hand that Rick has given him a formal notice on doing that.
Can you make him put the grass back in the spring? Because
Yeah,
it's ruined
I mean-
from the parking, so I just figured I'd ask.
We also won Leah Honda. When you approve Leah Honda, you labeled all of their display areas, as we put in the thing tonight, and you limited the number of cars and you earmarked fire lanes and everything else. And when J.R. Russo put in the as-built, they did not put any of the numbers, spaces on there. We refused to accept it. Then there was some back and forth, hemming and hawing. They didn't want to do it. Then we went out and inspected, and the cars were twice as many cars, not twice as many, but a lot more cars than were approved were there. The fire lanes were all blocked. We made them all move them all, and we did before we would, and we got a revised as-built from J.R. Russo before we would give them their CO. But we run into this constantly, that the as-bills that come in don't reflect what this commission approved. It is a holdup, but I mean, and what we're basically running into is, well, we gave you a map. Well, you know, the map's got to be what this commission approved, and we're not accepting it. We also ran into the same issue. The secretary was in this week to sign the Petronella site map, and the Petronella site map, the final plans this time, not the as-built, the final plans were not in keeping with your approval with respect to buffer areas. We notified the J.R. Russo, because the problem is that Christie, the automobile person who wanted to go to ZBA for her location approval, she can't go until the final plans are approved. And we would have to send out those plans to ZBA tomorrow for her to be on for the 18th for ZBA. And because Mr. Petronella has not authorized J.R. Russo to submit the plans as this commission approved, we're not going to be able to put her on the agenda for ZBA. So I just want people to know that, I mean, there will be a complaint. We're holding it up. We're not holding the thing up. Secretary did not sign the plans quite properly. They were not in accordance with your approval. And I was told today by J.R. Russo that Mr. Petronella is thinking about whether he's going to authorize that or not. So I'm just a messenger.
I have one, Roger, and I think it's been asked before, and I don't know, I thought we had an answer. On the corner of Shaker and Elm Street and, Shaker and Elm, on the north side, he's had a whole load of logs dumped, and he does this, it seems, every year or constantly. And somebody inspected him, or the question was asked a long time ago, I think when Tony was chair even, that we'd asked, and they had some kind of an answer, but I don't know what he's doing. I don't know if it's for his own consumption, but he has right on the Elm Street side, right on the front of the building,
He's got
a whole
display
dump
racks for
loads of-
sale, too.
Oh, does, okay, so, and he splits these logs out front there, and he does all this, and I don't know what's going on.
Peter Bryanton worked on that for a while, and he got rid of it. I think that, I don't know if the sign is back or not, but Peter Bryanton got after him because he thought it was a busy place and it shouldn't look like that. And I'm sure he had zoning
He's got a
regulations.
couple of trees that were cut down, it looks like a lumberyard,
Gets
really.
rid of them and cleans it up and goes back.
I think this is the same place he was selling picnic tables for a while there, too.
No, that was down further.
It's across from Walgreens, like
yeah.
kitty corner.
Yeah, well, we will, we gave you tonight the zoning enforcement list.
Yeah, that may be
From
on
time
there.
to time, we'll give you the blight enforcement list as well, because sometimes they go hand in hand.
Well, he's been doing, I know he's been, I'm sure it's gone on for quite a while, because I can remember somebody asking about it before.
Yeah.
And it really, it's on a main Dragon Town, doesn't look too nice.
That's why Peter got involved.
Okay.
The cease and desist that went out for the sand and gravel operation, Powder Hollow Sand and Gravel, The cease and desist was not appealed. However, the applicant wrote a letter to the town attorney, their attorney write a letter to the town attorney saying they don't believe that they're subject to the regulation of that was cited, and they're not. They were also cited under aquifer protection. They're challenging whether or not the aquifer protection applies to them. And they're also questioning whether they have to submit to inland wetland jurisdiction. It's the opinion of the staff that they are. So there was a meeting held, and the result of that meeting is that the Powder Hill Sand and Gravel sent in a detailed Freedom of Information request that asked for basically every piece of paper that there is in the town hall related to Powder Hill Sand and Gravel, going back forever, which, will have to be narrowed in scope and so forth. But there was worked out with this commission a roadmap to compliance for that site. I'd much rather be spending my time figuring out how to get things workable for the commercial business and for the neighbors than spending my time on Freedom of Information requests. But that's what the status of the situation at this point in time. They have a cease and desist from wetlands, from aquifer protection, and from zoning. They have expanded a non-conforming use. Their only grandfathered right was for a gravel mining operation. They turned it into hauling stuff in, processing it, taking it back out. They also have Jersey barriers and sewer pipes stored, and it appears as though they've made substantial changes to the grade of the site, and they're changing the grade of the site on a regular basis. That we're working very closely with the town attorney on that. So a lot of staff time right now is taken up on enforcement matters that we're dealing with. There is the matter of 33 Post Office Road. We're all going down to the court next week for the matter on Manning Road. When you enforce regulations, people are going to push back, and you just have to stay the course.
I noticed on Manning Road, when they put in their cement sidewalks, they did the same thing as they did up in the housing development. They put, for the access driveways, were all blacktop.
That's a town, that goes to that issue that we need to, once you reorganize in January, this commission and the council is reorganized, you've got to have a meeting on, because that's the changing in the standard that
But who has
Public Works did.
Yeah, Public Works just decides they're going to change it and that's it?
Right, and those technical standards are actually part of your subdivision regulations. Yeah. And so that whole issue of where the town is putting sidewalks and what they're made out of and what the driveway aprons are made out of is really something that the town council and the P&Z got to have a constructive dialogue about.
And I also noticed the part where we gave permission, or we made a suggestion, with the curb cut, and then we were going to have the curb extended across that upper parking lot for, I forget the number, 53, is it, or 35?
53, Manny.
Right. There was supposed to be across that upper parking lot a curb put in.
Yeah.
And that was open.
Yeah, I think the developer's going to fix that.
I thought we were trying
he just filed his revised plans this last week. I don't even think the secretary's seen them yet.
The last question I have in the top here was 10 Park Street. What was that in here for? Is that something coming?
That was just, the staff needs the consensus of the commission as to how we handle that. This was an application to expand a non-conforming use as a residential house in an industrial zone, and it was signed off. it would have required under the regulations to come to this commission as a special permit, similar to a couple you've approved recently. And so it's now in for a certificate of occupancy after 4 years. And so Rick asked whether it would be, how should he handle it, because when we review COs, we review the approval process, and since it and does it match up? And since it didn't follow the approval process, what is it? I mean, you can either say have the person to come in here and apply for the special permit that didn't apply for 4 years ago. The building is already built. It was signed off on at the time. So it's sort of, what do we do about it?
If you remember, that was when Hendricks was in charge. And she was.
Yeah, I'm not saying right, wrong, or indifferent. How did it happen? I'm just saying.
People did things because they were told to do things.
Yeah,
that's I think it's.
Commissioner, I'm not finding fault here, and I've had a conversation with the person who signed it.
I know, but
I'm not finding fault. I'm just saying it puts
Let me
us
finish.
in an odd position. And so, like, if you say, okay, sign the CO, we sign the CO.
Well, let me finish. It's a done deal. So, and it was done the way it was done, but
This is what went on.
it's finished business as far as just sign a CO and call it end of business.
That's why it's so nice to have somebody here that.
Yeah, it's somebody that realizes we have regulations in charge. That makes a different
It's a lot different, see.
difference on how we operate.
You don't know what's going on then.
So that's just it's a result of.
Okay, and along those lines, I have two things that I need to bring up tonight. One is that the Shaker Heights subdivision, the last commission, you decided that it had expired because you gave him a deadline, he didn't meet it, and so we wrote him a letter, said his permit has expired, he will need to come back to the commission, and he sent me an email and said, can I have an extension till January 19th? I don't understand what he doesn't get. If we said your permit has expired, it expired. So I'm just alerting you to that. I'm assuming that we're in the same position, your permit expired.
Maybe doesn't understand expired.
The second is, so if we're good on that one, the second is what is the name of that place? Medi Weight Loss over here submitted a site plan that's 49 years old. And when we went out and inspected the site is in no way, shape, or form the same as it was 49 years ago. We refused to accept it. They have complained to the Director of Development Services, who asked on what basis we didn't accept it. I gave him a memo citing 7 sections of the regulations. But I think it's entirely reasonable that we not accept a 49-year-old site plan.
I agree. I think we have to be more, we have to be firmer in what we accept as plans and drawings and that kind of stuff.
You have people that go running.
Oh, I understand that. And, like Charlie says, some things are done deals. But if there was a policy that this body gave to Roger and said, if it's not to this scale, if it's anything older than, then it will not be accepted.
If it's not accurate, you don't accept it.
Well, yeah.
I know.
Finished business.
Thank you, but
So-
we've been getting
I
this stuff.
wrote back to the Director of Development Services today, and I said, as far as I understand it, these are the regulations that, and this is how we interpret it. If a site plan does not represent present conditions, or if present conditions do not represent the original approval, if changes are proposed, or if what is presented represents a change of use impacting the zoning regulations, such as parking, circulation, disabled parking, screening, and buffers, then a new site plan is required. And that's what I take out of the zoning regulations, sections 9.10.1, 9.10.4, 9.10.7, 9.10.9, 10.10b, and 12.20b. They all address that. And furthermore, what the 49-year-old site plan was stamped by the architect and signed, and he didn't make one change to it. I believe that's illegal, and he gave it to me, and it's false. It does not represent what's at the site, and so I further informed the Director of Development Services that a public official cannot issue a permit based upon information known to be false. So I'm just saying that when we have an example tonight from 4 years ago when somebody says, well, people were told to do things, I will say no more.
Rules are the rules.
Roger, I'd just like to go on record that our next meeting is the 21st, not the 19th. I believe you had indicated that it was the 19th.
21st.
But he had mentioned that to Commissioner Ballard.
19th is the wetlands. I apologize.
So someone may want to contact Commissioner Ballard and let her know.
Mr. Chair, I think I endorse the comments that Roger just made regarding the 49-year-old plan, and I think it would be useful for the commission to do that. To support?
Yes.
I think we should allow or make a motion to have the planner be the planner and not have to.
No.
That'll just be.
No.
That's a personal problem, situation, and we don't do personal.
I like what Nick said, and I think that we should go on that basis. If it's not at all what it was like before, and it's so old and it's improperly stamped, it should never have made it past the desk in the office, the front counter.
What the question I'm being asked is, why do I even have the right to ask for a site plan?
Well, we could have a workshop and invite him, and we could go over it.
Or just show them, give them the copy of the ordinances.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I answered. But you know, the thing is like, how else do you determine compliance with zoning?
Well,
And
I
so
understand,
what I
what
you know-
you're talking about, Roger, but I really don't think this is the appropriate forum to discuss.
Well, no, but
that
the thing
piece.
is-
And with what is being asked of you by somebody in a supervisory capacity versus you, I think that we need to, if you want to ask us a question about what you think our thoughts are on it, that's one thing, but I don't want to get in and engaging with
what I'm saying is
who we're talking about and who we're not talking about, and I think that's not appropriate for us to be involved in. That's what I'm concerned about.
I'm good with that, but I'm just saying that the conversation before was Ginny saying, "Oh, I signed something 4 years ago, so somebody told me to," and then people say, "Well, it's different now." And so, I mean, this is the thing: is either you got regulations and you have staff to interpret them, or you don't. And so, if I'm reading the regulations, so what I'm saying to this commission, if you feel that I'm not accurately interpreting those regulations, then so be it. If I am accurately interpreting the regulations, then so be it. But this commission is the one who would say to me that I don't need a site plan.
I'd like to go on record in terms of saying that, you know, we should have a site plan that is accurate enough to indicate exactly what is going to happen and what has happened in the past in terms of, you know, if there are modifications that are made to a certain property that changes its appearance or changes its usefulness, and that it has to indicate, you know, the information that is pertinent in today's world. In terms of 50 years ago, they never had any handicap parking. They never had any ADA requirements. You know, there was never any, you know, requirements for where the runoff went and how it got controlled. And I think that, you know, an owner has a responsibility to maintain accurate records of what his property is and what has happened to his property. I don't necessarily think that we need to have a new site plan developed for every single application, but it should be accurate enough so that it reflects the information that we need in order to make a decision, and it has enough information that reflects the changes that were made over a period of time.
I agree with what you're saying, Rich. I agree. Very true.
Signed, sealed by a
Right.
professional, whether it's I was going to say, an architect or the custodian, whoever drew the plans up. In fact, we've even accepted drawings on graph paper as long as they were signed by the person that did them and they were to scale.
Right, and I think that's all we're looking for, is that, you know, we don't necessarily want to create a burden on every applicant that he has to recreate a new site plan. You know, basically all we want to do is know what is happening, but you would expect that if an owner of a retail establishment, you know, has businesses there, he knows exactly what the square foot of his businesses are because he's charging them by the square foot. He knows exactly, you know, where the access points are, how, you know, the parking is working and where the parking is and where all the driveways are. So, you know, that is a given that, you know, you need to know all that information just to function and operate a property. I mean, even insurance people want to know exactly what's going on your land when they give you insurance. So it's one of those kind of things where, you know, we're not really creating a burden on owners. What we just want to do is recognize the fact that information has to be given us so that we can actually make a good decision. And, you know, it doesn't have to be the most recent information, but it should be accurate.
Should be in the same decade.
Yes, exactly, and I agree now.
Well, we don't need to go yet.
All right. I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Oh, there you go. Did you do it early?
I make motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor? Good job, ladies and gentlemen.